Happy Tuesday. It's time for coffee and cursey words, but a little different coffee and cursey words today because we are on verdict watch, day 2, technically. The jury only deliberated in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case for about 2 hours before they went home on Friday ahead of the long weekend. And so here we are waiting to see if there will be a verdict today or not. And if so, when. And doing that, I'm going to do just a quick breakdown of the jury instructions, my thoughts from the trial, and then get into all of your questions and just leave a little bit of time, a lot bit of time for questions and see what happens. If the lawyers, and I'm seeing reports on social media that the lawyers may be heading into the courtroom. If they are, we will go to one of the feeds that has a camera in the courtroom. It might just be that they're answering a jury question. It's not unusual. The jury's been back since 9 a.m. Eastern. So the jury's been back for about 3 hours, but it also could be that the jury sent out a question and was like, can we go to lunch? Yes. Or they might have lunch brought in. You never know. So it just depends on jurisdiction. So because we are back to our regular kind of coffee and cursey words vibe, we are, coming in from everywhere. And I see you guys who are longtime law nerds already letting me know where you're coming in from. So absolutely let me know where you're coming in from, what you're drinking. I'm in Middle Tennessee with my mega pint of coffee. It shall forever be known as the mega pint. So with that, say hello and let us just let's just do the intro and then get into what we're talking about today. And then we're just going to hang out and talk about what it's like waiting for a jury and talk about all the things. So let us go. I can't even hit the intro because I love seeing where y'all are coming in from. I'm going to make it happen. We're just going to do it. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. And speaking of that, let us get into kind of the hellos, the hi, how are yous. It's good to see everybody, all of you here. For those of you that are new during this trial, or if this is your first live stream, go ahead and pop a 1 in the chat and say hello. The mods are like, Emily, stop blowing up the chat. There's more people here than we're used to. Yes. Hello to the 60,000 of you watching across platforms. It's good to see you. So with that, we're going to do some jury instructions because it's helpful. And we're going to just talk about not just what this case has been like, but we'll talk about what's been going on this week and then where I'm going to be all over the world. I've seen you, law nerds. You are the greatest. Thank you. I have seen articles where either myself or this commentary has been quoted in multiple languages across the world, from Australia to, Denmark to New Zealand, where I've been on radio and will be on radio again later this week. I was on radio in Boston this morning. And then there's some more kind of primetime traditional media interviews coming up. I will let you know when I know. The thing is, I don't love talking about what might be coming up because TV pushes things. So until it's like, we're doing this right now, I tend to not share it out because when TV pushes, I don't want anybody to be like, wait, I wanted to see it. And then it pushed. It happens. Anyone who works in TV knows that especially in legacy kind of news, that happens. So it's Iceland. I want to go to Iceland. So the Iceland is on a list. I mean, I've been to Calgary in January. It was very cold, but it's not Iceland. So it's so good to see everybody. So thank you. And we are co-streaming on Facebook as well, which we do for Coffee and Cursey Words and Friday Night Live. That's my regular schedule. Here's the plan for this week. The mods are like, ooh, this is news to us. This is news to us. No, here's my plan for this week. If we don't have a verdict today, it is my plan to go live if we're hearing of a verdict. The The judge has said that if there is notification of a verdict, what the court will do is notify everyone of a verdict and then read it the following hour. So if a verdict, it's 11:10. If the verdict came in now, then the verdict would be read at 1 p.m. because it's past the hour. So the judge said it will be a full hour at least. But if the court got notice at like 11:45, and I'm in Central Standard Time, 11:45, then it would be the same. You would get the verdict the following hour at 1 p.m. So the judge has made it very clear that there will be ample time for a verdict if there is a verdict, and that we will know. So here is my plan. I will alert you on the social medias. I will put a community tab post here. I will tell you on Twitter. I will tell you on my Instagram stories. And for those of you in North America, I will text you in the text crew. That is my plan. I am not going to just be live all day, every day, because I do have other obligations, and my kids are on summer and they've missed me and I've missed them. So that's the plan. We're going to go through these jury instructions and see what the jury could be deliberating about, see what the law says that they're going to have to figure out, and then get into your questions. So if you have questions, I will swoop and do questions like I normally do. So if you have questions for me, if you want to just chat with the chat, of course, chat with the chat. But if you have questions for me, put a Q at the beginning or a question mark, or say questions, and then we can flag it and save it for questions. But when I get into questions is when I'll answer them. That's how I normally structure our live streams, and have been doing so for the last like 2 years now. Hello, Fairy Bong Mother. I love your screen name. Thank you. Hi from Cali. Got Don Francisco butterscotch coffee. That sounds divine. Hello from the UK. Love your feed. So informative on US law. Thank you. We try to inform, and maybe sometimes we'll have a giggle together. Patty, we are still on George Watch. This little cat, we have 2 boy cats, Fred and George, both ginger kittens. And George has been having some kitty urinary tract issues, which in boy cats is a very big problem. He seems to be doing much better. We are keeping him on close watch, which again, everyone's off for summer. So it's been a good exercise, but he seems today to be doing much better. We were at the emergency vet this weekend. I did a quick Instagram live just to say hello, because I was waiting in the car and I was like, ugh. From Vancouver Island, BC. Vancouver Island is one of the most beautiful places. Love Vancouver Island. We went there for my husband's 40th birthday. It was amazing. Mega pint of whiskey lemonade sounds delicious. Why are the lawyers at the courthouse? Verdict or question, I wonder. I am guessing question. And I would think that the court said that they wanted the lawyers within 10 minutes, probably for questions. And that's reasonable. And I'll tell you why. We'll talk about questions first, and then we'll go into jury instructions. Jay Advin says, today's my birthday. Happy birthday. Just wanted to wish the Law Nerd community an amazing day. Thank you for the live stream today. Best present ever. You're welcome. I will say we do live stream on Tuesdays. Tuesday is one of my regular days. I will probably be streaming just a touch more this week, because we're going to be on verdict watch, and I'm going to be sitting at my computer, refreshing social media, waiting for an alert. It's not like I get one personally. So we'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. Hi from Daytona Beach, drinking scotch. I mean, get it. Sounds delicious. And I know the weather's beautiful. I'm going to get outside a little bit later today. Couldn't get outside this morning because I didn't want to mess up my hair. You got to be honest. I didn't want to mess up my hair before I streamed, and going outside is going to surely mess up my hair before I stream. So with that, thank you all. So do you think it's going to be a quick verdict? There's a lot for them to go through. There's a lot for them to go through. So we will see. And I'm going to address this after we do the breakdown. Paulina says, as a Ukrainian, your streams have saved me from having a mental breakdown every day. Paulina, oh, my heart is with you. I have a number of Ukrainian friends who live in the UK, and it is just absolutely horrific. And that's part of the reason I stick so firmly to this channel being what this channel is about, is because sometimes you need to turn off your brain and go do something else and not hear it nonstop. You're living it. You don't need to hear it on the news. You're living it. So to be able to say, I know when we go to Emily's chat, we're not ignoring what's happening in the world, but we're making a choice that this is what we're talking about here. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. And we are thinking of you. This chat is thinking of you. And I'm sure everyone is going to send you lots of love in the chat. So watch out, as your name's going to get added all in the chat as people send you love. Terry said, I've been rewatching the trial. Amber Heard actually said Johnny Depp's eyes turned black. What the fuck? Yeah. What was the movie? Was it? No, it was a TV show. There was a TV show about superheroes with Hayden Panettiere, and one of them, their eyes would turn completely black. There's a lot of movie imagery with eyes turning completely black. It was a lot of analogy. I because I gave Johnny Depp leeway in the way he was kind of um uh poetic, if you will, in his speech. I tried to give a little bit leeway, but the thing that's different is Johnny Depp, when he would say things, you could tell he was talking in metaphor. I think Amber Heard was trying to be literal, and so I had questions. But yes, she did absolutely say that his eyes would turn black and he wasn't there and she couldn't see him anymore, and like being possessed by a demon. So it's just, there was a lot. I tried to give space for hyperbole with both of them because I gave space for hyperbole with Depp, but I don't think it was hyperbole. Because of what followed it. So there's been a lot. We'll talk about the testimony. I was going through the 6 weeks yesterday as I was prepping the podcast, and it was a lot. Like, there was a lot there. So, Rides with Queen from Arizona, drinking Red Bull to prep for court, not a lawyer, just property manager doing an immediate eviction. Oh, happy Tuesday. Well, an immediate eviction makes sense. I'm sorry. That's a lot to deal with. Lawyers, that's what lawyers are for. Hello from Croatia. You're awesome. Thank you, Ivan. Appreciate it. I'm going to try to pull some of these up and then we're going to get in. Hi, active duty in New Mexico. Love tuning in. Jessica, thank you. And thank you for your service. Love seeing the chat, sending love to Paulina. This is fantastic. Chat, you guys are the best. Do you think the jury, I'm going to answer that during questions, and I'm going to answer some of these during questions. Let's do jury verdicts, and then we will do questions as the chat is like jumping with over 80,000 of you here. We're going to do that first and then get to questions. I'm not seeing any indication of what the lawyers are in court for. And here's the thing. Probably a question. If it was a verdict, they probably would have let the media outlets know, or they might be letting the jury know first, or let the lawyers know first and then let the media know. We'll see. So let's go through some of these jury. Let's go through some of the jury instructions. I'm not going to go through every single one. We link those in the description. They are publicly available documents. I'm just going to show you how I go get those real quick, and we'll do it. And then we'll get back. We're going to talk about the law stuff, and then we're going to get back to the verdict stuff, or verdict watch stuff, and I don't know, the waiting. I feel like the whole world is getting to experience what it was like it's like being a trial attorney. Like, everyone that's watching this trial now knows how hard it is to wait for a verdict. It's so fucking difficult. Naomi said, watching from South Africa. We're going to read through the jury instructions now, and then we're going to go through it. I see questions about the ACLU, just letting you guys know. I will absolutely talk about the ACLU stuff. And if we want to, we can go through why Depp sued the ACLU and now what they're asking for. But once I finish this, we'll just see where we're at with what's happening in court. And then we're just going to make a group decision on the fly. We'll just decide what we're going to do. So the high profile cases from the Fairfax County Court is letting us go to the high profile cases. Now, this has all the rules too. This has the order regarding courtroom and media, spectator media information from the sheriff's office, media pool camera information, and the trial exhibits if you want any of those. It also has the things that have been filed, including the verdict forms and the jury instructions. There's that emergency motion to intervene. So we're going to do jury instructions first, and then we'll come back to the special verdict form. So I'm going to do this at questions 2, because otherwise we'll never get through this, and I'll get like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then I'll forget to circle back. And then all of you that are much more linear than I am are going to be like, I thought we were coming back to that. And I'll be like, we were coming back to that. We absolutely were coming back to that. So let us do this. I'm going to try to pull this up in the reader so I can make it bigger. Y'all are making me seriously consider getting a second monitor so that I can make these even bigger. I was maybe looking at that this weekend. I was supposed to be doing the podcast that comes out on Wednesday. And I was like, do I need a second monitor instead of just a split screen? I feel like maybe I need a vertical monitor. Like, am I a Twitch streamer now? Like, who are we? So I was trying to figure out what I needed. I haven't used the soundboard in like, 2 months, but I feel like for now, this will serve our purpose. But with a second monitor, it'll get rid of that gap between my lovely face and whatever we have on screen. And I can't do it. Like, if it would just let me bring it close like that when I was up here, I would love it. But Streamyard hasn't given me that option yet. So here we go. All right. So I feel like dual monitors is the way we're going. You guys are like, once you go dual monitors, you'll never go back. I have a big monitor, but I could go with the vertical for the documents. It would be really fun. So we'll see. Are Amber Heard's legal team also in court? Yeah, both legal teams have to have somebody in court. They have to have someone in court. All right. Instruction number 1, impartiality. Don't be biased. You have been chosen and sworn as jurors in this case to try the issues of facts. You must consider and decide this case fairly and impartially. You're to perform this duty without bias or prejudice as to any party. You can't just go in being like, I hate your face. However, that's really hard for people to set aside. You guys are blowing up the Law Nerd shop too. My phone keeps going off. I'm gonna have to turn off my notifications in a minute. So thank you for all of those of you that are ordering as you're watching me talk. You are to perform this duty without bias or prejudice to any party, a hard thing for jurors to do. All reasons stand equal before the law and are entitled to the same treatment all persons. Reasons. All persons. Our system of law does not permit jurors to be governed by sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion. Here's the thing about jurors, though. Jurors are human. And so sympathy, prejudice, and public opinion can play into jury verdicts. And public opinion was introduced into this case by Amber Heard's legal team. Amber Heard's legal team introduced public opinion into this case with hashtag justice for Johnny Depp and hashtag Amber Heard is an abuser and hashtag Amber Turd. They did that themselves. And then they elicited from her on the stand, how do these continue to impact you? How do these statements continue to impact you? And she was like, they're making fun of my testimony on the internet. The jury is not supposed to know that, but they do. So with this, we are seeing reports that the jury is on lunch, which was my suspicion when it was like, oh, the lawyers are coming back. They dismissed the jury for lunch. So with that, the jury is on break until 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the jury is on break for a half hour. So no jury watch for the moment. No questions for the moment. Everybody pause, stop, collaborate, and listen. We have a half an hour to do this before the jury walks back in. If maybe the jury's like, we need to go to lunch, and then we'll decide. So the jury is at lunch. So let's continue on with the jury instructions. Anyway, so it's hard. Sympathy will play in. It's hard, but it will. But there will be some jurors who, depending on their personalities, will say, hey, but that's just sympathy. Let's look at the facts. And I think in this case, that cuts both ways. People may be sympathetic for Johnny Depp, but they may be sympathetic for Amber Heard too. Like, yeah, he said some mean stuff to her, but is this defamatory or not? And that's going to be really interesting. Our system of law does not permit jurors to be governed by sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion. I mean, there's like people are having like a party outside the courthouse showing their love for Johnny Depp. They're going to see that. So this is their just general instruction. And then these are that the instruction was given and signed off that the instruction was given. So the judge is signing off on each of these that they have been given to the jury. And they're supposed to be read exactly. And we will get into that in a minute. Credibility of witnesses. You are the judges of facts, the credibility of witnesses, and the weight of the evidence. This is why I went through this in the podcast 2 weeks ago. Yeah, when I did the breakdown in the bye week. I broke down this instruction because it's going to matter. You may consider the appearance and manner of the witnesses on the stand, their intelligence, their opportunity for knowing the truth, and for having observed the things about which they testified, their interest in the outcome of the case, their own bias. I added the word own, their bias, and if any have been shown their prior inconsistent statements. That is one of the reasons why Camille went so hard on, but to believe you, this witness is lying, and to believe you, this witness is lying, and to believe you, this witness is lying, because there are inconsistent statements there, and they're allowed to point out, oh, if this person has inconsistent statements, then you don't necessarily have to follow along with it. And whether they have knowingly testified untruthfully as to any matter in the case, you may not arbitrarily disregard believable testimony of a witness. For example, if a juror, Malfoy, testified, I liked Malfoy's testimony, Morgan Tremaine, he was wearing black nail polish. I think it's great. But if there's a juror who's like, I don't want to listen to somebody who has black nail polish, then that would be an arbitrary reason. But if it's like, oh, I really believe Umbridge that this person's here for their 15 minutes of fame, which for the record, I don't believe, then you have a reason. You can use your common sense. But arbitrary would be like, his hair was sticking up, so obviously he's not a believable witness. Those would be more arbitrary versus the way that they testified, if that makes sense. So you cannot arbitrarily disregard believable testimony of a witness. However, after you've considered all the evidence in the case, you may accept or disregard all or part of the testimony of a witness as you think proper. If it's like, oh, that didn't square with these other things, or, oh, that testimony doesn't make sense, then you can decide. You're entitled to use your common sense in judging the testimony. Common sense. So though they are not supposed to get to, sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion, they are not supposed to check their common sense at the door. From these things and under all other circumstances of the case, you may determine which witnesses are more believable and weigh their testimony. So if the jury is like, we're not going to listen to Depp and Heard first, we're going to go to all the other witness testimony, they're allowed to decide what's all the other witness testimony and then decide it. Number 10, verdict may not be based on sympathy, bias, guesswork, or speculation. You must not base your verdict in any way upon sympathy, bias, guesswork, or speculation. Your verdict must be based solely on evidence, facts, evidence, and the instructions of the court. Liability issues, because again, this is a civil case. So we are not in a guilty, no, not guilty realm. This is not criminal. We are in the civil realm. Liable, not liable. Are you responsible for the shit that you said in this case? Or are you not responsible for the shit you said? And in Johnny Depp's case, when I say shit that you said, I mean shit that Waldman said that's trying to be attributed to him. So let us go through liable, not liable. Liability issues. Your verdict must be based on the facts as you find them. This is why I could never be a judge. This is exactly why. Someone would appeal and be like, but she said facts and then broke out into song. I could never. I like doing this better. Your verdict must be based on the facts as you find them and on the law contained in all these instructions. With respect to plaintiff Depp claims against defendant Heard, the issues in this case are summarized below. Whether Ms. Heard made or published any of the following statements. Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. That is the statement that I think is the most likely. That statement. That one. That statement. Because whatever the jury might decide on the other two, I think that statement, is the strongest possible option for Depp. And again, I don't understand. And one day maybe we will know, maybe we will not. When I read this headline and read the op-ed the first time, I thought that headline was going to experience other experiences. And then when I started looking at the rest of the context, the time she talks about facing our culture's wrath is with regard to Depp. And so then I started connecting the dots, but it wasn't obvious to me at first that that's what the headline was about. Then I started connecting the dots. Then it was like, okay, if she had not put in any testimony about sexual violence, would her team be in a place to argue she didn't write the headline and it wasn't about him? The rest of this, I know it's defamation by implication. You can attribute it to him, but we've never said that. I don't think there's any walking it back after that testimony came in the UK court, because then she could be impeached on it. But I was just wondering why they didn't walk that back a little bit. But once it's all out there, and you can't put the shit back in the horse. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Again, I think there's an argument that that statement is literally true, but they are going with defamation by implication. Is the implication of this statement more, and is it defamatory, even if it's literally true? And that's where you have all the fight over the TRO. You have all the fight over the TRO because this statement could be literally true on its face. Did she become a public figure 2 years ago when her face was on people? Yes. Did she face wrath? I think that's fair. But if the TRO is false, or the facts predicating the TRO is false, then you still have the defamatory implication that Johnny Depp was the perpetrator of the domestic abuse of which she spoke out about. And I don't know if all of you pulled that away, but this is me parsing this case for now weeks and weeks and weeks. So that's where I've come around on this. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. Again, literally true. Was Johnny Depp accused of abuse? Yes, by her. But if those accusations are false, then you again have this defamation by implication, even though the statement is literally true. She did have a unique vantage point. She did see how institutions protect men, though I would say in this case, and I would love your thoughts, did the institutions of Hollywood protect Johnny Depp, or did they shun him? And at what point? And that's, I think, a real conversation. But at the end of the case in cross-examination, when Amber Heard was testifying, and I went through and watched this again yesterday, when Amber Heard's testifying in her own SIR rebuttal, she's saying, everyone came out of the woodwork. Everyone came out of the woodwork to be part of the Depp show. Everyone came out of the woodwork to take care of him. Everyone came out of the woodwork for him. All of these people are just trying to be part of the Johnny Depp show. All of these people who are coming in to testify. And Camille Vasquez was like, the people you're accusing of committing perjury, girl, what? My summary, she didn't actually say girl, what in court, but would we have lived? Yes, we would have. And she's like, that's why I wrote the op-ed, because of this phenomenon. And it's like, thank you for finally clearly putting a pin on the question of who it was about, because she had sidestepped it. She had sidestepped it a lot. But then in that cross of that SIR rebuttal, it came right back around to, this is why I wrote it. Institutions protect powerful men. Not false, by the way. Institutions do protect powerful men. True. But is that what happened in this case? This is not railing against the system. This is not Amber Heard's rage against the machine moment. This is Amber Heard calling out Johnny Depp, and the ACLU testimony that they wanted more about Depp in there to have greater impact is what did it. If this was an op-ed just about the general inner workings of Hollywood protecting men, he wouldn't have been able to sue about it. But it put that 2 years ago and it pinned it down to him. And that is why we're here. An op-ed about institutions protecting powerful men, fair game. Say it. Needs to be said. Happens. Starting to shift, but happens. So let's keep going. So these are the questions. I love that we got to these are the questions. These are the questions. So this is why defamation by implication is necessary here, because statements B and C can be determined to be literally true. The allegations of sexual violence in the testimony were difficult for me to believe. Just difficult. Just difficult. You let me know what you think. Do any of Miss Heard's statements imply or insinuate anything about Mr. Depp? Were Miss Heard's statements seen by anyone other than Mr. Depp? Yeah. Did Miss Heard's statements convey a defamatory implication to someone who saw them other than Mr. Depp? And that's why the experts were so important, saying Hollywood knew. That's why you had those witnesses saying Hollywood knew this and Hollywood knew that. So are the implications and insinuations, this all goes to defamation per se, are the implications or insinuations about Depp in Heard's statements false? And that's why they've got all three statements here. And that's why we're going to the implications and insinuations, because it can be literally true, but it leaves the insinuation that Johnny Depp is an abuser. And that's why we're here. Did Ms. Heard make the statements with actual malice? That's a big question that will be defined later. I think the biggest question in this case, I'm surprised that in closing they didn't lean into she relied on counsel. They didn't. I was surprised. If Mr. Depp is entitled to recover what amount of damages on these questions, Mr. Depp has the burden of proof. Your decisions on these issues must be governed by the instructions that follow. So this is it. This is what we need. So liability issues with respect to Ms. Heard's claim against Mr. Depp. I wish that they had ordered this differently and put like these instructions and then all the instructions that go to that. And then and then the counterclaim and all the ones that went to that. They didn't. That's fine. It's just easier for me to parse. With respect to Heard's claims against Depp, did Adam Waldman, while acting as an agent for Mr. Depp, make the following statements? Amber Heard and her friends in the media use fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and a shield, depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax, quote, facts as a sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp. Quite simply, this was an ambush, a hoax. They set Mr. Depp up by calling the cops, but the first attempt didn't do the trick. The officers came to the penthouses, thoroughly searched and interviewed, and left after seeing no damage to face or property. So Amber and her friends spilled a little wine, roughed the place up, got their stories straight under the direction of a lawyer and a publicist, and then placed a second call to 911. I think when we look at the facts in this case, there were clearly two sets of officers that came out. It doesn't seem that the place was roughed up in between because you've got the video. You've got the video showing that the place really wasn't roughed up in between the two calls. So there are some things in the record and in the evidence that contradict statement B. You don't have a second 911 call that's been in evidence. There on the interwebs, there's a conversation about whether or not there is a second 911 call from Rocky Pennington. But what we saw from the second group of officers is I think it was a big related to the other call. And I would need to go back and look and see how they narrowly parsed that about the other call. So I need to go back and parse that. This totally caught my eye. I love Ketchikan, Alaska, Jules. It's beautiful. Alaska is one of my favorite places that I've ever visited. Sorry. It caught my eye in the chat. This is why sometimes when I'm trying to be linear, I have to turn the chat off. I love Ketchikan, Alaska. All right. So with that, I think there are some things on the record that can get to maybe this statement is not literally true, but if they find they have to get to the agency first, and we'll get to that in a minute. They then get to, we have reached the beginning of the end of Miss Heard's abuse hoax against Johnny Depp. So it really is is it a hoax? Is it a hoax? Is it a hoax? Are any of the statements about Miss Heard? Were any of the statements seen by someone other than Miss Heard? I don't know if they did a great job talking about that. They tried to do it with the hashtag expert, saying that the hashtag expert goes through and says that these statements are echoed, but I don't know if they really proved that these statements were seen in the same way that Depp did. I think the jury can assume, though, based on all the facts, that these were published in the Daily Mail and people would have seen them. I think that's fair. Are any of the statements false? The jury decides the facts. Were any of the statements made with malice? A difficult question for both sides. If Heard's entitled to recover, what is the amount of the damages? And then Heard has the burden of proof. So I see the chat asking about the ACLU. We'll get there next. The jury's on lunch, so we've got some time to go over some of the other shit. And have coffee together, because why not? Finding instruction. You shall only return your verdict for Mr. Depp on his claim for defamation about the following statements if he is proved by the greater weight of the evidence that, more likely than not, greater weight of the evidence. Miss Heard made or published the following statement. And then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. There's going to be one of these for each statement. Let's go. Statement number 2. I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how the institutions protect men accused of abuse. And statement number 3. Where is nope, these are Adam Waldman's statement. Where's statement number 3? Mm, that's Waldman. Where is statement number 3? Hold on. I see statement 2 and I see statement 1. Oh, here's the sexual violence one. I missed it in my zooming. It was the first one. All right. Here's the first one. This is the one I'm going to talk about, the spoke up against sexual violence for instruction C. The 3 statements each have their own instruction. They're the same except for the statement. So this allows the jury to find, I zoomed it too fast. This allows the jury to find on this statement, but not this statement. 2 years ago, I became a public figure, and not number E, I had the rare vantage point. They could find on 1 or 2 or all or none. I'm going with the one that I think is strongest, and we're going to break this one down. 1, 2, 3, all, none. Depp's team, I think, you know that I love Camille Vasquez and how she rocked this case like a boss while wearing white and having perfect hair, even though it gets humid. I don't know how that was done. Having to get up in the morning and worry about hair and makeup before going to slay in court, something that is always annoying to me, but it must be done. So she did a really good job in closing of saying you believe all of it or you believe none of it, because she is hoping that the jury will not parse the fine details. If you find any of this ridiculous and over the top, which I think almost all of us watching this trial found statements that Heard made to be ridiculous and over the top and not matching the evidence and being like, girl, what? Girl, no. Just no. So that's why she was trying to say all or none. And that's why we're getting into these. So this instruction C, you shall only return your verdict, greater weight of the evidence. Ms. Heard made or published the following statement. This is statement 1. The statement was about Depp. The statement was false. The statement has a defamatory implication. The defamatory implication was designed and intended by Heard. That's why the ACLU testimony matters so much, because it has to be designed and intended by Heard. And this is where I think they could have hit the headline more, and they didn't. Heard's team could have leaned in more to, she didn't write the headline. She didn't write the headline. She didn't write the headline. How can she design and intend something that she has no control over? And in fact, Heard testified that she didn't even see the headline, but that the sexual violence claims are something she wanted to keep private. Now, look, when she was talking about this is something I want no one to know about, I felt that completely. This is not an uncommon experience for any survivors of sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment. It's very common that they don't want anyone to know. What was odd to me is then when she I'm going to say retweet, and I'm going to be wrong. When she quote tweeted it and said, I'm proud of what I wrote, that she's like, oh, I didn't catch the headline. If this is your deepest, darkest secret, if this is something you want the world to not know, if this is something that you feel shame about, which, by the way, survivors, you shouldn't feel shame. It's not your fault. But it's a common feeling. If this is something she feels shame about, if she feels humiliated about, if she doesn't want to be public, then how do you not see the headline? Because if this is exactly what you want no one to know, and it's there in black and white on that headline, how do you not feel like you are going to barf? Because now it's out there for the entire world to see. How? How do you not see it? How do you not see it? Because I know there are things that I would not like to be out on the internet. My home address, for one. My phone number, the doxing. The doxing has gotten very interesting as this case has picked up, or the attempts at. And I can imagine that if I saw something that even alluded to where I lived, how I would feel. Because someone tried to dox me when I was covering another case and doxed my old home address. And it dropped a pit into my stomach when I saw it. Like, oh God, this is the beginning of this. Great. I've had threats against my kids. I've had threats against my kids since I was a DA. Every single time I see it, it drops my stomach and makes me feel ill. It's just like, fuck this now. And there's that moment. And so I've I've had those experiences where you've seen something on the internet and then you're just like, I didn't want that out there. And I can't imagine if this is something so closely held, then how do you not see the headline? I can't get over that point. I'm stuck on that point because how do you not see it? And how do you quote tweet it and share it if it's something that you're so closely protecting? And I don't fault victims and survivors for not wanting that information out there. I feel you. That is yours. That is yours to not share. That is yours to share when you choose to. That is yours to heal from. That is yours to move on from. But it's not something that if somebody said it, you wouldn't feel sick. So I'm sorry. I'm just going to step back off of my soapbox. I just can't understand the testimony of, I didn't even see the headline. I didn't even see the headline. I can't understand it at all. And I, from my own experiences living this life for over 44 years, I just can't. So with that, that's my thoughts on the headline. Was the defamatory implication intended? Also, there's no evidence. I'm not done. Emily, are you done? Nope. Not done. In the UK case, that headline, the wife beater headline, was up for less than 24 hours and the headline was changed. That headline, the sexual violence headline, was only the online edition. They could have changed that headline at any time. Like if she looked at that headline and was like, I didn't want that out there, that's not what I'm talking about, she could have had it changed. She didn't. And they talked about, you didn't ask for this headline to be changed. No. And I think that's where the republication on the tweet is making this the easier case, because she did not ask for it to be changed. If this is a closely held secret, if you are not ready to share your story of abuse, first of all, you don't have to. But if somebody's sharing that for you and you don't want them to, you can ask them to change the headline. It's not like you don't have a PR team. It's not like they're not working with you. The ACLU wanted this story out there. They were working with her. This wasn't a hit piece. This wasn't an expose. This was her story and her voice. And if that's misrepresenting your voice, ask to have it changed. She didn't. And that is telling to me. Whether that will be telling to anyone on the jury, I don't know. But also, it's different when you see people talking about the bottle incident and people are like, she was saying, God, I hope the bottle wasn't broken. Those who possess the lady bits are like, but you'd know though. But you would know though. And I'm glad there are some on the jury that can share that experience. Because you would know though. All right, let's keep going through these jury instructions. Due to the circumstances surrounding the publication of this statement, it conveyed a defamatory implication to someone who saw it other than Mr. Depp. That's where the experts came in. That Ms. Heard made this statement with actual malice. That'll be defined later. We're going to talk about malice a lot. And then you have to prove these elements. We're going to go to the verdict forms of what they have to go through later. We went through it. So finding instructions, we're not going to go through each of them. They are the same. The finding instructions for each of the three statements. 3 finding instructions, 3 statements. The finding instructions for the Waldman statements are different. So we're going to go to those next. Finding instruction, Waldman statements, different task for the jury. You shall only return your verdict for Heard on her claim for defamation about the following statements if she has proved the greater weight of the evidence that Adam Waldman, while acting as an agent for Depp, made or published the following statement. And these are going to be the same for each statement. These are the hoax statements. We'll just call them the hoax statements, the Depp Waldman hoax statements. The statement is about Heard. I don't think we have a question that all these statements are about Heard. These statements are about Amber Heard, no question. The statement was seen by someone other than Miss Heard. I think, again, they didn't go at the same lengths to prove it. But again, it's in the Daily Mail. I think it's reasonable. The statement is false. And, sorry, my nose is itching. If Miss Heard is further proved by clear and convincing evidence that the statement was made with actual malice. I want to point out something that I don't think I pointed out well the last time. Do you see the difference in the standard? There is a difference in the legal standard here. The legal standard for the first questions is greater weight, preponderance, more likely than not. It's good. Some law student somewhere is going to be going preponderance of the evidence. It's fine. Seems about right. Apologies. But greater weight of the evidence, preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. The standard is different for malice. When we get to malice, the standard is clear and convincing. It's more than meh. It's more like, yep, I see that shit. I am convinced. Me on the sliding scale of standards. So there is a heightened standard, and not just because malice is a higher standard. So you're probably hearing that there's a heightened standard, but not just that, you're hearing that there's a heightened standard, but that there is actually a heightened standard. Clear and convincing evidence is a higher standard than greater weight of the evidence. So you have to prove malice, and you have to prove it by clear and convincing evidence. That's more than meh. So more than meh. So they're going to have to find agent. They're going to have to find malice. And then they're going to have to find the other stuff. The other stuff is pretty easy. It's obviously about heard. There's enough to be like, it was probably seen. It was in the Daily Mail. And that falsity, they're going to have to decide. So this is for the other hoax statements. This is for the third hoax statement. So 3 statements from Heard, 3 statements from Waldman. Definition of preponderance, greater weight of the evidence. This isn't going to say meh anywhere in here, just by the way. When used in these instructions, the phrase greater weight of the evidence, also sometimes called the preponderance of the evidence. Keep reading, Emily. You could have just gone with the court definition instead of meh. Means evidence which you find more persuasive when evaluated against all of the evidence that has been admitted in this case. The testimony of one witness whom you believe can be the greater weight of the evidence. I'm surprised they didn't read this to the jury. Heard side should have read this to the jury. The testimony of one witness who you believe can be sufficient. You have to get to disbelieving everybody else, but it can be sufficient. This should be clear and convincing. Definition of clear and convincing. When a party has a burden of proving an issue by clear and convincing, they must prove evidence that creates in your mind a firm belief or conviction. I'm convinced. Firm belief or conviction that he or she has proved the issue. So that clear and convincing only goes to actual malice. So I know there's been a lot of questions because I've said like ad nauseum that the law is on the side of Amber Heard. Yes, this is a higher standard. Malice is hard to prove. I think the ACLU testimony got us to malice. Yes, we'll talk about the ACLU in a little bit. But this is why. This is a higher standard to prove someone's state of mind. How do you know their state of mind if they don't say deuces? Well, I think there's enough evidence here to find malice. I'll talk about it. But also when Elaine stood up in her closing and said, we're not actually suing for $100 million. We wanted to send a message. What Elaine told the jury is he sued us for $50 million and we went deuces. Here's your 50. Here's your 100. Get out of here. I think that should have remained things you don't say out loud. Let us all assume it. We all assumed it, Elaine. We knew that that's why you sue for $100 million. We know that Amber Heard is not going to be able to prove $100 million in actual damages. We know that. But to actually say, we wanted to send a message. Girl. Oh, they wanted to send a message to Mr. Depp. Okay, here's the message. Fuck you. All right, let's talk about malice some more, shall we? Let's talk about malice some more. Good to see you, SK. Do you guys follow Passenger Shaming? It is one of my favorite Instagram accounts. Not only is the operator SK amazing and brilliant and smart, but also greatest Instagram account ever. All right, let us continue on defamation by implication. Number Y. It annoys me that these are lettered. I know that's being picky. I don't know why they're lettered, but it says number. Number them. Why? 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 Why are they lettered? It says number. It's making my brain itch. Defamation by implication. A statement that is not directly defamatory may nevertheless suggest a defamatory meaning in an indirect way. That is, by implication. I can't imply anything with my children. Like if I look at my son and go, T, Travis, and he's like, what? I'm like, why didn't you stop? He's like, you didn't say stop. Was it not implied by my tone, sir? Nope. It was not. Clearly not implied by my tone. So I try to say that things are implied, and my kid's like, negative. Just say what you mean. In determining whether any of the statements have a defamatory implication, you must consider that the op-ed as a whole and the circumstances surrounding its publication, all of it. And this, again, if the jury's sitting there reading this the way we are together, the circumstances as a whole are that Aquaman was just released, are that Amber Heard was looking to leverage the movie to leverage her voice. There's nothing wrong with that unless the shit's defamatory, and then you can't do that. That the ACLU was working with her on revision after revision. They were going to lawyers to try to skirt around how defamatory would this be, whether this would violate her divorce settlement, and how she can say it. So that is where we're getting this like, but they're allowed to consider the circumstances as a whole surrounding the publication. You should consider if these circumstances show that the words used are defamatory and relate to Mr. Depp. However, such circumstances cannot extend the meaning of the words used in the op-ed beyond their ordinary common meaning. Violence means violence. Violence means violence. The proposed implication must be reasonably drawn from the words actually used. Defamatory meaning, consideration of the publication as a whole. This is one of the things that was discussed when we watched the lawyers litigate over jury instructions, because this instruction says you have to consider them as a whole, and you can do that with the op-ed, but you can't do that with Waldman because a lot of it's redacted. So that's why you get this second instruction, number FF, following number Y. Tell me, why are you lettering numbered instructions? You're going to make me sing Backstreet Boys. In determining whether any of the statements in the op-ed are false or defamatory as to Mr. Depp, you must read the statements in the context of the op-ed as a whole. This means you may not seize one word, phrase, image, or consider only one particular statement, phrase, or passage. In determining whether any of Mr. Waldman's statements are false or defamatory, you must read those statements in context as a whole. This means you may not seize on any one word, phrase, or consider any particular. And that's the statements in the whole sentence, not just like, oh, well, these 3 words are defamatory, but you don't get the whole article because it is redacted. So, actual malice. Both parties have the burden of proving actual malice by clear and convincing evidence. To meet this burden, each party must prove by clear and convincing evidence that each statement was made or published, 1, with knowledge that the statement was false, 2, so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false. And this is what I think this whole case boils down to, is the state of mind, the malice. And that's why this defamation case felt like a trial over whether abuse happened or not, because it was about whether Amber Heard knew that the statement was false. How do you prove that Amber Heard knew that the statement was false? You have to prove that the shit didn't happen the way she's saying that it happened. And then you can say it didn't happen the way she said it was happened. Look, when she went to go get the TRO, they hadn't been physically in place for 6 days. And there's this weird throwaway note in the nurse's notes about her having a cyst on her face. And, you know, how do we know? How does a jury determine if somebody knew the statement was false? How do you prove that? Unless, like in the Cardi B, Tasha K case, the person who published the thing says, oh, I know it's false. I don't care. I mean, that's a rare circumstance, which is why you don't see a lot of trials on defamation, because rarely you don't have somebody going, yeah, I don't care. I know it's false. I don't give a shit. I'm going to keep saying it. How do you prove someone knew it was false? This entire case is, how do you know it's false? You have to prove Amber Heard said things that didn't happen. And that's why this matters so much. And then if you can't prove they knew it was false, it's that it was reckless to amount to a willful disregard of the truth. I think that's where the jury's going to have to, if they're looking at the Waldman statements, they're going to have to get to willful disregard. And that's why in rebuttal, you saw the discussion about the Waldman statements, and you saw the binder of evidence that he went and said, he went to the police and said, this is perjury. He had the, statements of the witnesses, the police. And so they said how much Waldman knew, because they're trying to prove that Waldman didn't have a willful disregard for the truth. Waldman wasn't there. He only knows what he can rely on. And what Waldman was relying on is his binder of, well, the police didn't, see anything. And then this, and then this. And we saw that at the end of Waldman's video deposition, with him going through all the different things he said that led him to believe they weren't true. So if the jury considers, and when the jury considers the counterclaim, I don't think they find a reckless disregard for the truth based on Waldman's own statements in his testimony. And they brought that around really clearly, I think, in closing and in rebuttal, all the things that Waldman knew. And they listed them out in closing. And they did that because you can't get to actual malice, I don't think, on the Waldman statements. I just don't think you can get there. That doesn't mean that you can get there for Amber Heard. I just think it's easier to get there for Heard based on everything we've seen. So actual malice is not ill will, hatred, or bias. And this is the thing. This is when I got so fucking pissed at Elaine. Because Elaine was trying to say Waldman walking up and taking a paper and throwing it down on the desk is actual malice. It's not. It's a dick move. But a dick move is not actual malice. Actual malice is what we just read. Knowledge of its falsity. Actual malice should not be confused with the more common meaning of the word malice, such as ill will or hatred. So when I yelled about Elaine misstating what malice was, that's why. Actual malice is not established merely because the author was motivated by ill will, prejudice, hostility, hatred, contempt, or a desire to injure. That's not what malice means. So let us keep going. And this one's number BB. I don't know what's happening. Republication. In order to find that Heard republished the original op-ed, including the headline, through a tweet on December 19th, 2018, you must find that she retransmitted the defamatory material or redistributed the material with the goal of reaching a new audience. I'm going to put up a poll. Miguelina, will you put up a poll and ask if the chat thinks there was republication as we go through this? There's across platforms, there's over 115,000 of you here. I would love to take a poll about what you all think about republication. So do you think that Amber Heard republished the op-ed? Would be our poll. Thank you. You must find that she retransmitted the defamatory material or redistributed the material with the goal of reaching a new audience. Stated differently, republication occurs when the speaker has affirmatively reiterated the statement. I'm going to pull up her statement in just a second. A hyperlink directing readers to a previous article on the same website does not direct the previous article to a new audience. Merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article may constitute republication. You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience. If you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes republication. Further, if you find a republication occurred on December 19, 2018, then in order to find for Mr. Depp against Ms. Heard, you must also find by clear and convincing evidence that Ms. Heard made this republication with actual malice. Let's go look at the actual tweet because I have it. So let's go look at the actual tweet real quick because we have it. Did I intend to pull it up earlier? No. Are we WAP? We are professionals here. So Let's pull it up. Ugh, let's not be slow about it. I'm talking to myself. We're processing. Let's see. This tweet is, come here, tweet on the street. It's interesting to me that they took the photo out of it for trial. I don't know why. I don't know if they just didn't screenshot it with the photo, but that's the photo. And then below this is the headline. I think I have it in a separate one, but below this is the headline and like the quote tweet. Today, I published this op-ed in the Washington Post about women who are channeling their rage about violence and inequality into political strength, despite the price of coming forward from college campuses to Congress. I was going to say we are because it felt more weighty. We're balancing the scales. So with that, let's see. For all of you on Facebook, I'm sorry, I don't know how to put up a poll on Facebook. The poll is up on the YouTubes because YouTube gives me a convenient little way to do it, but I can't do that as easily on the Facebooks. So apologies, Facebook audience. Just put a yes if you think it's a republication and a no if you don't, and I will swoop over there and look when we are done. So that's the headline. It has the link below. You can go ahead and vote and let me know. So that. Let's go back to the jury instructions. So I think Elaine trying to confuse the jury, unless she was actually confused. Perhaps Elaine was just confused. But I didn't like the way she tried to describe actual malice in closing. I think it misstated the law. It's why they ended up approaching so much during her closing. It was not good. It was not good. I would have lost my fucking mind. Depp's team was so calm. I don't know if I could have been that calm. Misstating the law to the jury is one of those things that can cause such massive problems that I literally would have lost my mind. And if a prosecutor does it, the defense attorney loses their mind because it can be so damaging. Anyway, I think this is a republication. Also, if you are a public figure, even if you're not, be mindful of what you share. Because be mindful of what you share. This is what republication is. It's a good time to just say, be mindful what you share on social media. I appreciate that Twitter now, if you go to reshare something, it's like, do you want to read the article first? Generally, I only share things I've read all the way, but sometimes I've read it elsewhere and then I'm going to reshare it. And Twitter's like, are you sure? I appreciate it. It was like just a reminder. You're republishing. Just a direct retweet is not a republication. And that's really what this gets to. A retweet is not a republication. But the I wrote this, I think, takes in the headline and at least cosigns it and is a republication. Definition of agent principal. So this is to Waldman. A principal is a person or legal entity with a power or right to control the means and methods of a performance by which another person performs the principal's work. Did Depp have the power to control the means and methods or performance of the lawyer? I don't know. An agent is the person who is subject to the power or right of a principal to control the means and methods of performing the work. The thing is, at the end of the day, it's the client's choice. And I think that gets you here. I don't know if they will parse this closely on agent principal, because at the end of the day, you decide if they sue or not. You decide what they do. But the statements are interesting. How will the jury come down on that? I don't know. The jury has to determine whether there was an agency relationship here. But the article being Depp's attorney, I think will go a long way for this jury. So with that, and I see in the chat, no one won. The jury is still on lunch. The jury might just be back from lunch because the jury was going to lunch till 1. So the verdict clock might be reinitiated, but the jury was just at lunch. That's all. The jury was at lunch. They're going to be back from lunch. They're going to start deliberating again. No decision, no verdict. We'll talk about the ACLU in a minute. We're going to get through the jury instructions first because I promised that we were going to do these first, and then we'll keep going. And then all of you are going to be like, wait, we're not streaming for 7 hours today? No. Not streaming for 7 hours today. All right, so let us continue on. Express or implied authority. An attorney has the express or implied authority to do everything which the client expressly authorized him to do, and the implied authority to do everything necessary or incidental to the purpose for which he was retained. And I think that helps the jury get there. And Depp said he never even heard of the statements until he was sued for them. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Burden of proof. Ms. Heard has the burden of proving the greater weight of the evidence that Mr. Waldman was an agent for Mr. Depp and that Waldman was acting within the scope of his agency. I just don't think they got there. No burden of proof, no burden to prove truth of statements. Rottenborn was trying to get into this, and I think could have gotten into this more. But let's get into it now. You must remember there's no burden on either party to prove the truth of any of the statements. Both parties were free to offer proof of truth, but by doing so, they did not assume the burden of convincing you of the truth of the statements. The burden remains on each party to prove that the statements he or she complains of are false. So with that, it is, you don't have to prove it's true. Like, Amber Heard doesn't have to prove the truth of what happened. Johnny Depp has to prove that it's false and vice versa. But with that, doesn't it feel like it's just a circular argument? Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think it feels circular, but that's what they were on about. Ugh. Me trying to get comfortable. Yeah, I'm wiggly today. Sorry, y'all. It's been, we're wiggly. Expert witness. It's my chair. I need to readjust. I need time to readjust the office chair at some point. We just haven't had time there. Expert witnesses. The rules of evidence are simple and finite. No, they're not. The rules of evidence ordinarily do not permit witnesses to testify as to opinions. Experts can. Consider the expert opinion with the weight you think it deserves. We're not going to get into expert testimony. The experts for Team Heard were a fucking disaster. The experts for Team Depp were great. I really wanted to see a better battle of the experts. Look, these are two parties with money. Just pure selfishness on my part. These are two parties with a lot of money to just litigate in court. I wanted to see excellence. I was hoping to see excellence. We saw some excellence, but we also saw Dr. Spiegel, and that was a fucking disaster. We saw Dr. Hughes with their freaking Post-it note, which wasn't, it was a swath of paper saying, I don't want it to be a memory test. You're an expert. It is a fucking memory test. That's literally the assignment. How did you not understand the assignment? You are a professional expert witness who wrote a book about being an expert witness. That's the assignment. I don't want it to be a memory test. It is. It's not a game of who the fuck are you. It is. It is. I wanted to see good experts on both sides. I think we saw tremendous experts from Team Depp. I think we saw a few good experts from Team Heard, but a lot of them were disastrous. A lot of them were just disastrous. I don't know how they picked those. I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they did the hashtag stuff. Runkle and I disagree on the hashtag expert. I said the hashtag expert, kind of garbage in, garbage out when it comes to that kind of stuff. If they ask the wrong questions, you ask bad questions, you get bad answers. You ask better questions, you get better answers. I thought some of that was on the lawyers. And Runkle is like, well, you didn't have to take the money, expert. If it was a bad question, you could have said, I'm not doing that. And I get it. But also, I think some of that's on the lawyers too. So some of that is on the lawyers too. I just saw a very generous super chat come across. And this is the thing. Sometimes they have different colors and it catches my eye. Woman of Alchemy, thank you so much. Grateful I found you. All the things colliding is no coincidence. 53-year-old former CEO badass took the leap, sold my business, recent diagnosis of ADHD, DA survivor and Chopra teacher. Yes, I clocked Deepak's books on your shelf, sending all the love. There are books on my shelf, lots of books on my shelf, but yes, there are. Thank you so much. And yes, it's amazing when you get to say, hey, I went down this path doesn't work, and pick a new path. And the badass woman in me honors the badass in you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sold your business. I love it. Took the leap. Sometimes leaping into the life you want is always leaping into the life you want is really scary, but it can be really awesome. So isn't that what we're here for? I mean, I can't imagine life is just supposed to be toil and boringness and no cursey words. I mean, that's no fucking fun. Aren't we supposed to have fun? Aren't we supposed to have fun? So with that, let us continue. Yeah, so they get to weigh the experts. We've already weighed the experts. We've weighed them. We have issued judgment. And when Dr. Spiegel testified, everyone went like this. Negative. Once we got to the Johnny Depp being called an idiot, all of the chat that is ADHD was outraged. Just outraged. All of us were outraged. We're like, really? Try something new. We've heard this our whole lives. Fuck off, Dr. Spiegel. All right. Weight of expert witness opinions. In considering the weight to be given to the testimony of an expert witness, you should consider the basis for their opinion. Did they decide to try to clock someone's processing speed and determine if their cognition was impaired by drug or alcohol use based on watching them in fucking movies? Is that how they decided? Because if so, you can go ahead and disregard that. Considering the weight to be given, consider basis for their opinion and manner by which they arrived at it. Did they have numbers? Did they have data? Did they have facts? Did they decide? Did they watch a few movies? Did they not watch Willy Wonka? You get to decide. Expert witnesses and reliable authority. An expert witness was asked whether statements contained in published treatises, periodicals, pamphlets are reliable authority of the type normally relied on by others in their field. This evidence is permitted to test the knowledge, accuracy, and opinions of the expert. A lot of that, I think, goes to Dr. Hughes and how she used the tests. Depositions and considering evidence. You are not limited to the bald statements of the witness. You are not limited to what you see and hear as the witness testify. On the contrary, you're permitted to draw from the facts which you find to have been proven such reasonable inferences as may seem justified in light of your own experience. During this case, certain testimony was presented to you by way of video deposition. You should give this testimony the same consideration as to its weight and credibility as you give to the testimony of witnesses who testified in court. You must not discount any testimony merely because it was shown to you by video recording, which is hard. Because the thing is, yeah, you're supposed to consider it the same, but was it easier for you to listen watching this trial through a screen? Was it easier for you to be engaged with live witnesses or video deposition witnesses? Which were easier for you to follow? Which were easier for you to connect with? And I think that's the problem for the jury too. It's just harder to listen to hours of video depos. It just is. And then they're cut funny because of the objections. It's just different. It's just harder to listen. Party bound by his or her own testimony. When one of the parties testifies unequivocally to facts within his or her knowledge, those statements of fact and the necessary inferences from them are binding upon him and her. He or she cannot rely on other evidence in conflict with his or her own testimony to strengthen his or her case. However, you must consider his or her testimony as a whole, and you must consider a statement made in one part of his or her testimony in light of any explanation or clarification made elsewhere. I don't know if the jury will come down to that. Circumstantial evidence. Any fact may be proven by direct evidence or proven by circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is like, again, back to the TMZ witness, Morgan Tremaine. When people directly send us something they own the copyright in, it takes us about 15 minutes to get up onto the site. When it's sent through another source, it takes us longer to verify copyright. How long did this video take? 15 minutes. Circumstantial evidence. It doesn't say the thing, but you can draw the reasonable conclusions from it. So prior inconsistent statement by non-party witness if you believe from the evidence that a witness other than Depp or Heard previously made a statement inconsistent with their testimony, the only purpose for which the statement may be considered by you is its bearing on the credibility. So all of that, but in the UK, you said this, they're not allowed to consider the UK stuff to be true and consider this stuff to be false. They are supposed to say, oh, you said this and then you said this, which one's true? So that's not what I meant to do. That's what I meant to do. Prior inconsistent statement. If you believe from the evidence that Heard or Depp made a statement inconsistent with his or her testimony at this trial, the previous statement may be considered by you as evidence that what Heard or Depp previously said was true. So with Heard, just for an example, do you believe that she told her acting teacher that Depp injured his hand with a bottle versus coming into court and saying, oh, he smashed the phone against the wall and that's how he hurt his finger? Are you allowed to say, oh, the prior statement was true? They're allowed to look at the prior statements and say which one was true in that context. So if the previous statement may be considered by you as evidence that what they said previously was the truth, not what they said then. And that goes with all the impeaching. But in the UK, you said this. As to those individuals, you're allowed to use it that way. Objections and assertion of privilege. This was something that was fought for by Team Depp and came in because of the deposition with Waldman, where there were so many objections, and it was same objection, same grounds, same instruction, same grounds, and it was like, I receive the instruction, I will follow the instruction. Those were all attorney-client privilege things. In reaching your verdict on this case, you are to consider the testimony and evidence. Sometimes attorneys stating objections during the course of the trial and instructed a witness not to answer the question. It was really Waldman. Objections and instructions to witnesses are not evidence. Are not evidence. Are not evidence. And you may not consider them in reaching your verdict, nor are you to draw any inference from the fact that an objection was made. Y'all. There's no way the jury didn't take inferences. The jury absolutely drew inferences from the objections, but those inferences probably weren't about those testimonies. Those inferences could have been, get it together, Elaine. What is this witness trying to do? Why does this witness keep saying that? Ooh, this witness isn't allowed to say that, especially when we got to that last tech witness, or one of the last tech witnesses talking about the photos. And there was just objection after objection about metadata and photo colors and all the stuff. The jury's going to be sitting there being like, I guess you really don't want that witness to say something. Like, they're going to draw inferences. It's going to naturally happen because we all did it too. It's like, what do you want to not come in? You want something to not come in. So that is going to happen. Susie Smith, thank you. I'm going to answer this when we get to questions, but thank you. We're going to get to questions soon. We're almost through these. I want to look at the special verdict forms after we get to this. Stricken evidence, the jury is supposed to put the shit back in the horse and forget they heard it. Like Men in Black, you're supposed to just forget that you heard it. This trial's so long, it's going to be hard for them to disregard things. And again, when they've already heard it, it's very hard for humans to disregard things they've heard. It's like, well, I know we heard Amber Heard say she spent over $6 million in this case. You can't undo that. You can't unring the bell. Which is why you have to get those objections out fast. Any amount of damages requested by a party is not evidence. You should not consider it as evidence in arriving at your verdict. The $100 million number. Presumed damages. If you find a verdict for Depp or Heard, then he or she is entitled to recover compensatory damages without any proof of actual or pecuniary injury. Compensatory damages without injury. As a result, injury to Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard's personal and business reputation, humiliation, and embarrassment is presumed. That's the defamation per se argument. You don't have to prove damages. You can still get compensatory damages. It's assumed that they were hurt. Actual damages. If you find either party liable for defamation and determine the amount of damages to which the opposing party is entitled, you may take into consideration all the circumstances, and you can compensate him or her for any loss or injury to his or her business, If they just would put there, it would be so much easier. But again, these are all decided by committee, and changing jury instructions is going to take forever. But it would just be so much easier if it was your verdict form should be for an amount that will fully and fairly compensate them for any loss to their business, any insult to them, including any pain, embarrassment, or humiliation or mental suffering, any injury to their reputation, and any out-of-pocket losses that were caused by the statements. It would just be so much easier for everyone to read instead of it having to be him, her, him, her, him, her. Why they didn't do this ages ago, I don't know. The law is slow to change. I think one day, hopefully, we will just see jury instructions that are easier to read that way and just more inclusive. Then you don't have to worry about it. It just takes some of that out of it, but whatever. Mr. Depp cannot recover damages. Hopefully jury instruction committees start to just make this easier. Mr. Depp cannot recover damages for any harm that occurred after November 2nd, 2020. Heard can recover damages from any harm that occurred after the Waldman statements were published. So there was a cutoff point for that. All right. Reasonable proof. The burden is on the party seeking damages to prove by the greater weight of the evidence each item of damages they claim. Neither party is required to prove the exact amount of damages. The jury gets to decide. They get to just go, we get to decide. Great. Punitive damages. If you have found by clear and convincing evidence that the statements in the op-ed were made with knowledge that they were false or so reckless as, I hate this sentence. Why do I hate this sentence? Because it should be reckless, not recklessly. If you have found by clear and convincing evidence that the statements in the op-ed were made with knowledge that they were false or so recklessly made as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth, that is, with a high degree of awareness that the statements were probably false, then you may award punitive damages to punish misheard. Punishment damages, which is why I always call punitive damages punishment damages. They're the you suck damages. They're the hey, fuck you damages. We don't like what you're doing damages. Punitive damages to punish misheard for such actions and to serve as an example to prevent others from doing it in the future. Note, the punishment damages in Virginia are capped at $350,000. So that they are capped, but a jury could come back with $350,000 for punitives. This is punitives going the other way. And that's it. That's the jury instructions. Let's go to the special verdict forms real quick, because this is what the jury has to sit down with. It's what they have to do. This is what we'll see. And I can't wait to look at these afterwards. It took for fuck ever in the Maxwell case to get the verdict forms and see them filled out. These are taken in when there's a verdict. The verdict forms are taken in by the court. So if there is a verdict at some point, which there will be, when there is a verdict, unless they hang, we're going with when there is a verdict. Just know that there's like an asterisk to it that I'm aware that verdicts can hang, but we're just not putting that out into the world right now. We're not doing it. When there is a verdict, the judge will have to take that there's a verdict. The judge will have to take the special verdict forms, and with the special verdict forms, go through and make sure they're answered properly. The judge can then say to the jury, you didn't fill this out right. Go back and fix it. So there can be issues with verdict forms. And we're seeing that the jury has a question being reported by Chanley Painter of Court TV. So if they go back into court to see what that question is, I will pull us just back into court and pull up. I'm ready. If the jury has a question and that is pulled up in court, I will go back into court. So I'm keeping my eyes on the networks that have a court feed to see if they pull that up. So the jury has a question. That will be good. All right, let us continue with the verdict forms, and I'm going to try to monitor both at once. Thank you, chat. This is why I always ask, when we were doing the Rittenhouse case over on Rakita's channel, there was a lot of judges back. There was a lot of spam, and it was hard to know. It became an inside joke, but it was hard to know where to put your attention, especially if you're reading other things. So with this, I'm going to just try to keep an eye on the courtroom feed as I keep an eye on this, which means it's going to be harder for me to keep an eye on the chat, but that's what the mods are for. So let's go back to this special verdict form. This is what they have to fill out. There are 8 of these. This is what they have to fill out. So we're only going to go through one for Heard and one for Depp. and not all of them, but this is what we're going to go through. And we talked about these when they were shown in closing by Ben Chu. When Ben showed these in closing, I was like, get it, Ben. You know why? Because it matters. This is what the jury, at the end of the day, everything else aside, this is the worksheet the jury has to go through. So, Depp's claim against Heard. This is a special verdict form, includes each statements of which Johnny Depp bases his claim of defamation against Amber Heard. Answer the questions in accordance with the court's instructions. As to the statement appearing in the op-ed, this is the sexual violence statement, statement 1. Here's the statement. Then they have to find all of these questions. Do you find that Johnny Depp has proven all the elements of defamation, yes or no? If you answer 1A, no, proceed to question 2, which doesn't make sense to me. They should ask all of these questions first, because you have to find all of these things before you can find it's defamatory. It should be all of this. Do you find all of these? And then it's like, if yes, go to the next one. If yes, go to the next one. Maybe that would put too much weight on one. I trust the verdict committees and the special verdict form committee. I trust the lawyers to do what's best. In my brain, it just makes sense. So, did you find that he's proven all the elements of defamation? If yes, answer all of these. If no, go to question 2. Question 2 is the next page. So if yes, then the statement was made or published by Heard. The statement was about Mr. Depp, and they need to answer yes or no to each. The statement was false. If all of these things are not yes, we have a problem. Houston. And if that's what the jury's question is about, then we know they're close to a verdict. If the question is about verdict forms, we know they're close. And then we're on jury watch, like real close today. The statement has a defamatory implication. The defamatory implication was designed due to the circumstances surrounding the publication. It conveyed a defamatory implication. They have to answer all of these yes to get to this big yes. Then, if you answered yes to each subpart of the question, so only then, is it defamatory? Yes. Answer all these subparts. Then yes. If you answered yes to all of the above, then do you find actual malice? Yes or no? Great. As to this statement appearing in the op-ed, a transformative moment for women, then it gets into the other statements, and then it goes through the same questions for each statement. So we're going to go through each of these for each statement. Complete questions 4 and 5 only if you answered yes to all of questions 1, 2, or 3. This is confusing, but it's or. It's 1 or 2 or 3 or all or part or whatever. This is where it gets a little confusing. You guys are saying court is live, judge is on the bench. Well, I am not seeing it on the feeds I'm looking on, but I am going to go look. We're going to go find a feed. Let's see. Oh, I see it now. All right. Let me make sure we are live. Let's share that real quick. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Question. Uh-oh. I got to put this through so you guys can hear it. Hold on. Fixing. They're reading it. Fixing. I don't hear anything.
Which they've phrased as headline as opposed to title. But
right, because the headline is the alleged
There's
defamatory
a question about the
statement. So I
headline.
can say the statement is the headline, and not the entire op-ed. Is that what you want me to say? All right.
Thank you.
The statement is the headline.
Uh-oh.
Entire op-ed.
That's important.
All right. I will send that back to them.
And just so we're clear,
As
Your Honor,
well.
the wording would be what again?
I can give you the copy of this when okay, it says the statement is the headline, not the entire op-ed.
Oh.
Everybody's.
I'm just give me a second.
They need to, so they're formulating an answer to the
While we're
question.
waiting for that.
Let's see what the question was.
Mr. Chu, I
see if
did get
can
your
find it.
motion. I'm not ignoring you, but I am kind of ignoring you because since the jury has the case now and it's out of my hands, I appreciate your motion, but I'm not going to entertain it at this time. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you.
I'm going to try to see if.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor? Just
if Sky News is live because they don't have the ticker on the bottom, and the ticker pisses me off. It just distracts me. So this is a big deal, having a question about the headline, because again, I think the headline is the most powerful. And let's see if we can back up and hear what the judge said real quick. Oh, actually, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till the attorneys are done, and then I'm going to back up and listen. So that's why I'm not going to switch feeds, because if I switch feeds, then oh, well, if it was live.
All right. Are we satisfied with that answer? Okay. I will, we'll make copies of this first, and then I'll get it back to the jury. I'll get it back to you. Okay.
So I'm going to back this up.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
I'm going to back this up and hear what the question was. Let's see if we can get back there a little bit to exactly when the judge came on the bench.
Was that protecting Mr. Depp?
They interrupted. Let's see. They interrupted the.
At the start of this trial, we told you that this trial.
That's why we didn't hear it. The audio wasn't even on in the courtroom yet. I'm going to go find another feed and see if we can find it.
For number 3, does that seem appropriate to everybody?
So they never restated it. So that's why I thought it was me, but that's why we couldn't find sound, because it wasn't read. So I'm going to leave this audio on and see if we can find another feed, or see if we can find reports.
Which they've phrased as headline as opposed to
of what the question was.
Right, because the headline is the
the
alleged defamatory statement. So I can say
I'll go look at see what Law and Crime had. I will.
The statement.
You know how I feel about
is
that.
The headline.
We're going to go
not
with
the entire op-ed.
All right. We're going to go with don't strike a girl's channel because it's commentary Law and Crime. They get a little sassy. So I'm going to rewind on their feed. This is why I had multiple feeds up. And let's see if we can get to the judge on the bench. I want to know what that jury question is, and then we're going to talk about it. All right. Oh, they went into the courtroom way faster. So, all right, let's go to what they said. And let's see. All right, back in the courtroom.
Good afternoon. Oh, let me get you copies.
Chat,
we have
you're
a
so
question.
Wise. Chat, you're so wise.
I only have 2 copies, so
let's do the question.
Let me just read into the record the question.
Yes.
It's basically in regards to number C, items 1 and 3, and number C is a jury instruction on the finding instruction for the online article title.
So that's a question.
The question is, does question number 3?
That's a question on the finding instruction. The finding instruction on number C is what we just went over. So the finding instruction for C, here, we'll pull that back up. The finding in question for C is what we just went over. So that is very interesting. So C is what they're looking at. C is the finding instruction. Here, we're going to just go to it so we know what we're talking about. Here are the jury instructions. And let's go to finding instruction. Oh, I can control F myself. Look, it works so brilliant. Chat, you teach me things. I remember the night. I still remember fondly the night I was taught how to do that. I'm also, there's Command F yourself merch coming out. Don't worry, Mac users. All right, finding instruction. You will only return your verdict for Depp on his claim of defamation about the following statements if you prove the greater weight. Heard, made, or published the following statement. Amber Heard, I spoke up. So this goes to the headline. The fact that they're asking about the finding instructions means that they might almost be done, which means we are definitely on like DEF CON verdict watch. I feel like now is the time to share this with you. Amazing law nerd Claudia Murray shared this with me, made this for us. We're going to share this, and then we're going to go back and hear the question because I feel like we're on a heightened alert. We are at like DEF CON verdict watch, and here we go. Thank you, Claudia. We are in heightened verdict watch now that we have a question on finding C. This is the finding instruction they are talking about. Emily, do you think you're a news presenter? No, let's go back into court and see what the judge said. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. There's been a question. It happened while we were live. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This is the content we are all living for.
statement is false pertain to the headline, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath? Or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question for number 3. Is that seem appropriate?
That is going to be the count. If he wins, that is the count that he wins on. Because I think if they find abuse in a broad form, which it can be, that is the count that he can win on. And I think that's what they're contemplating. This is my speculation based on this question. This is very much reading tea leaves when we get to this. I'm going to read this again because they are asking, is the defamatory statement the headline? And when you look at that headline being the defamatory statement, that is a question that if you are Rottenborn and Elaine, you are sitting there going, fuck. This is what they're contemplating because they might have already gotten through the other two. It's reasonable that if they are on finding instruction C, they've gotten through finding instruction A and B, and they are now trying to figure out what this means. So we're going to go back real quick and listen to this question one more time as we read the tea leaves on a jury question. It is a very big deal. You guys, this is the best part of doing this work. You get to be like, ooh, the jury asked this. The best jury question I ever had was, can we be escorted down the back by the deputies after we render our verdict? So we knew they were going to convict and that they were a bit afraid of convicting. And you knew, and you got that question and you're like, they're convicting on something, because if they're not convicting, they're not worried about it. And I think that we've now gotten to, they're considering it. I think this is a solid sign. So let us go back and hear the judge read this one more time.
Title. The question is, does question number 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath? Or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question for number 3. Does that seem appropriate to everybody?
Okay, that's what they're answering. We've seen the rest of them answering this. I'm going to mute this and go back to live in case we need to go back to the courtroom. And I want to look at where that instruction is in the other statements. So so liability issues 1, then it goes to liability issues B. Oh, so this is the first finding instruction. Okay, so this is the first finding instruction. So it might be that they have just gotten to the place where they are ready to look at these finding instructions, because this is the finding instruction C is the first one. This is why I wanted to look at these. So finding instruction C, D, and then E. So not A, B, C, C, D, E. So this is the first finding instruction. They have to determine and I understand the confusion here because it says in the other instructions that we just went through, this is why we went through jury instructions. In the other instructions, it says you have to take it as a whole, but they're asking which statement are we finding liability for? Are we finding liability for the whole op-ed or just this statement? And I think this jury can parse it and find liability on this statement and no others. And that is really important to know. So this jury question means that they might be if they're looking at the finding instructions, maybe they're ready to start rendering verdicts or at least start taking votes on verdicts now that they understand what they mean. That is a big deal. Let's see, I'm going to tweet this out real quick, which goes to the headline and asking if that statement includes the whole op-ed or just the headline. Does this mean they are discussing? I think it does. Discussing the verdicts. I mean, that's what they should be doing. Each statement to render. I think so. All right. We're going to keep going through those verdict forms. This is the strongest count for Depp. That's a good question for Depp. If I'm Team Depp, I'm happy with that question. Real happy with that question. All right, let's go look at the special verdict forms that we weren't done with yet. And then we're going to talk about what's going on with, the ACLU. The ACLU is not suing Johnny Depp. Let's just get that out there now. We're going to go talk about it in a minute. That's a very interesting jury question. I love it. I love that we got I hope we get more questions. We might, if they're already in the finding instructions, they might be getting ready to vote and just clarifying these, which means we might see more questions quickly, or it might mean we see a verdict this afternoon, which is interesting. So it just depends. But having that question quickly is very, very interesting. All right, let's keep going through these verdict forms. This is what they have to decide. So they have to go through the finding instruction and then match it to this. The headline is the first one. So they're in the first one. All right. Get it, jury. All right, let's keep going. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3. Let's get into the heard statements. Where are the heard statements? They should be down next. Okay, so this is finishing up Depp's claim. I like the way they broke this up. So complete questions 4 and 5 only if you answered yes to all of questions 1, 2, or 3, which means we're getting to, you have to answer, this is confusing, I think, but you have to answer yes to all of number 1, all of number 2, or all of number 3. Hopefully that's clear. As against Amber Heard, state the amount of compensatory damages, if any. That's the compensation. What are you compensating? And then punitive damages, the amount's only $350. Signature of the foreperson, name of the foreperson. When we see this, we will see this redacted out. I don't know if we'll know the number. It should be up here where we see the number of the foreperson. I don't know. So this is a bit confusing, but I think that if there is confusion, A, the jury can ask about it, and B, they do have to answer yes to all of the questions in 1. So in 1, they have to answer yes to everything here. If all of this isn't yes, you can't get to damages. If all of this isn't yes, you can't get to damages. And if they come back with yes on all 3 and no damages, the court can say, you said yes to all 3. Do you find 0 and send them back? So they can choose 1, 2, 3, or none. Any of them. They can choose any and all. I'm going to get to questions in just a second because I know after that, there's a lot of questions. So let us get to it. This is going with the Daily Mail, Amber Heard and her friends. So this statement appearing on April 8th, 2020, these are going to Amber Heard's counterclaim. So again, same things. Answer yes or no. Answer to all of these. Was Waldman acting as an agent? So if they get to no, then all of this is no. Was Waldman acting as an agent? Was the statement about Miss Heard? Easy yes. The statement was seen by someone other than Miss Heard. What'll be real interesting is if they fill this all out and answer yes and no in parts of this, because then we'll get to see what they were thinking a little bit more, and that would be fun. If you guys are asking, wonder why the attorneys are at the courthouse, the attorneys were told to be within 10 minutes of the courthouse, because once they need to ask these types of questions, the attorneys need to be in the courtroom. They need to hear what the judge is considering. And not only do they need to hear what the judge is considering, but they need to be able to see, they need to be able to respond. And this is something that can go up on appeal too. The way judges answer questions, they get a question from the jury, they bring it into open court, they discuss it with the lawyers. It's a big deal. So that's why they are there. And that's why they were there within 10 minutes. They are probably there now. They're probably just staying at the courthouse. So let's see. If we, it'll be interesting if they fill these out. Like if they get to no and they just stop, I'll be bummed. But it'll be interesting to see if they do. We'll see. It's kind of like looking at, I don't know, score forms or something. It'll be interesting. So I also don't think she said who the foreperson was. And I was bummed. The lawyers probably know. They probably see that. And maybe we'll get some more reporting on that from Chanley Painter, who's at the courthouse. As to this statement, this is the other statements. And then it's the same with regard to complete questions 4 and 5 only if you answered yes to all of questions 1 or 2 or 3. And we'll see. And then that's compensatory and punitive. So we've gotten through all the damages. Let's talk about the ACLU stuff real quick, and then I'm just going to go to questions. I will break down the ACLU documents either later on Verdict Watch, and I'll timestamp it because replay crew. Love you. But we had a big question from the jury, and we need to break that down first, but I'm going to address it real quick. Johnny Depp sued the ACLU first. I will pull that up and go to the underlying suit. It's regarding the discovery and turning over of documents. The ACLU is now making a motion for fees like, hey, it cost us this much money to do this. Can you please compensate us? The ACLU is not suing Johnny Depp. He sued them first. And that's why this is a question of they are now seeking to be compensated. So this is a New York case where Depp sued them to deal with the compelling out-of-state subpoenas for this case. So that's why they are asking for expenses. I will break down Depp suing them and then getting to it. Depp did sue the ACLU. He sued them for dealing with the subpoena. He sued them over the subpoena. So he did sue the ACLU. They are not suing him. They are seeking compensation with regard to having to comply with discovery. So it is technically John Depp versus the ACLU in New York to deal with compliance of the subpoena. So we will deal with that later, but that is with regard to the subpoena. And it is regard with compelling compliance with the subpoena from Virginia, taking it into court in New York and saying, you have to turn over the documents. That's what it's over. You have to comply with this subpoena, and they weren't complying. Now they are asking for over $80,000 for the cost of complying with the subpoena. And that's what we're, so the ACLU is not suing Johnny Depp. This is all over the subpoena and trying to enforce an out of jurisdiction subpoena. We will dive into that another day. But what the ACLU is asking for is compensation for complying with the subpoena. That's it. That's what they're asking for. So the ACLU didn't want to comply with an out of state or an out of jurisdiction subpoena. They had to go to court over it to enforce the subpoena. The subpoena was enforced. The ACLU testified. They turned over documents. And now they're saying, this cost us $86,000. We want you to pay us for our time and effort in complying with the subpoena, which happens and regularly happens and is not outside of consideration. But it's just kind of wild after seeing their testimony that they're like, and now pay us for it. It's like, ACLU, read the room. Just, girl. So that's where we're at with the ACLU. No, they're not suing Johnny Depp. Yes, this was all over a subpoena in New York to force them to comply. They want their fees. It's like when you try to get your medical records and they're like, there's a document fee. And you're like, why don't we just have digital medical records so that people could have their medical records wherever the fuck they move or when they switch doctors? Why is this so hard? Why does it feel like a racket? Like it feels like a RICO organization to just try to get medical records. I could rant forever, but I won't. And it's like, well, there's a document fee. This is the same thing. There's a document fee. So they are trying to say this is how much money it's cost us to do it. So that's what they're trying to recover. I think they could have narrowly tailored it. If we have time, we will get into it. So that's what the court said. Very interesting to see that question. All right, let us get into your questions while I continue to monitor the socials to see what happens. I need to find I liked the other channel. I had 2 channels up and alive. So I'm going to find one more that has it in the courtroom. What was choose motion? You're right. Let's go look at that. Me, I'm going to answer questions. Also me. What? I don't see anything filed. So I don't know because I don't see anything filed. So I don't see anything filed. All right, let me look. There was one more one more. I wanted to monitor 2 different places in the back end, and I want to make sure that we're doing that. So let me pull up one more. What do I want to pull up? You guys, I can't believe how many people we have on live. Thank you. I want to pull up one that has a feed inside the court as well, so I can see when they cut over. And then we might just, have to use the one that switches over fastest and hope for the best. We're going to hope for the best. We're going to go to questions though. After I check YouTube to see if there are any other feeds we need. All right. This is the real behind the scenes of live streaming. All right. Oh, look at us. We're the #1 live stream on trending right behind Law and Crime. Oh, because there's 135,000 of you here. Hi, all. This is the perfect time for me to remind you to do the YouTube things. We're on the road to 600K. I haven't said that, I don't think, all day. I've been live for like almost 2 hours. I don't think I've said do the YouTube things. Here's why I'm asking. A, I like watching the little numbers roll over. I find it very gratifying. B, we're almost at 600,000. And how fucking insane is that? How insane is that on this channel? But it's okay. Like, come on, traditional media. You don't know what we do over here. We're not boring. So we are, with 137,000 of you across platforms. Yes, over on Facebook, there are 2,000 of you watching. So thank you, Facebook, for popping in. Over on the YouTubes, there's over 135,000 watching, which is why for those of you on Facebook, you're like, I like it. It feels like there's less people in the chat. Accurate. There are less people in the chat over on Facebook. But if you're on Facebook and you haven't subscribed on YouTube yet, like just pop on over, throw a subscribe, and then you can go back and have a chat on Facebook. I'm just going to plug since there's some of you over there too, because we're going to just make this happen. Okay, let's answer questions. This is the kind of commentary people are looking for. They're not looking for narratives. They're looking for conversation. And I think that's what we're proving here. We're looking for conversations about what's actually happening. And then if we like something or don't like something that's happening, we can say, oh, I like this, or oh, I don't like that. But we're still here to have a conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. The motion is the court said she was not considering something. I have not seen a motion filed. So we don't know. We don't know yet. So let us get to questions. Look at us. Look at us. We're going to bing in just a second. Thank you all. So let us get into all of your questions because I know that you have them, and we will peek back in on this in a minute. Do lawyers sit in the courtroom all day, or do they come back when there's a verdict? So this depends. For this case, I imagine that these lawyers have some kind of a makeshift office within the courthouse. They've been there for 6 months. A conference room, a jury room that's not being used. I imagine they have somewhere where they can be in the courthouse if they don't just stay in the courtroom. Normally, you wouldn't just stay in the courtroom if you didn't need to. The court would be able to access you by cell phone immediately, get you by cell phone. So if the court told them to be within 10 minutes, I imagine they are staying within the courthouse so that they can be accessible, and that they are in another room in the courthouse somewhere where they can work and they can talk and they can pace back and forth and, I don't know, monitor social media. If y'all are watching, if any of you are watching, we really want to know what that motion was. We're super curious. Just look, DMs and emails are open. We just want to know. We just want to know. It's not filed. So we just want to know the motion that was made. So if you could let us know, that would be fantastic. So they're doing the things and waiting. In different courthouses, the courthouses I worked in, the DA's office generally had an office within the courthouse. So within the court, you were trying a case and you often had your office there. If you were in another court, I would go and try cases in courts that weren't the one where my office was. Then you would either use another office at the DA's office, or you could use a verdict room or a jury room that was in an adjoining courtroom, depending on the courthouse. So yes, I think they should probably stay. It's too stressful to drive back and forth when there's a question. This is going to be a busy day. It's their first full day of deliberations. So I expect that they are in the courthouse somewhere. Where that is, they get to choose where they want to be. So they will wait. They have nothing else to do. They have nowhere else to be. There's nothing else they can do except wait. Like literally all they can do is wait. And that is tough. So let's see. Chanley Painter just tweeted. I'm going to do this real in just a second. Just tweeted Question, does question number 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline or pertain to the op-ed? Answer, the statement is the headline, not the entire op-ed pertaining to instruction C. So I'm going to retweet that because it sums up what I said. And I was trying to tweet while live streaming. Didn't Johnny Depp, Amber Heard have an NDA as part of their divorce? They sure did. Sure did have an NDA. And wouldn't Amber Heard's op-ed have violated that? Love and cold brew from Denver. Cheers. They sure did. And we heard testimony from the lawyers that they were trying to make sure that this didn't violate the NDA. I think it did. But they were trying to work around the NDA, but he didn't choose to sue over the violation of the NDA. And I don't know why that choice was made. I wonder if it was to get here to say, you know what, if you sue over violating the NDA, does it kind of mean that you're trying to hide something? Where suing for defamation, you're saying this is false. I'm not suing because you violated this NDA. I'm suing because you're lying. I think that that's more powerful in the court of public opinion, which is a huge part of this case. No matter what anyone wants to say, it's a huge part of this case that this gets tried in the public. Can we give a shout out to Elaine because she was crying after the closings? She worked her butt off and it couldn't have been easy. Deviating from their strategy with client-led decisions. Thank you for all you do. Shar, I talked about that. Oh, is this a replay from earlier or are we back live in the court? Hold on.
Against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath? Or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question.
They went back to the
for number
question. Okay, that's not new. Making me think it's new. That is the same thing that they did. All right. So nothing new. Wait. What?
All of you, the viewers, that the jury had a question. And the question is something I want to discuss with Karen Felicia Nance trial.
Nope. I just saw a headline that said verdict reached. So I'm going to go look on social. You guys can look on social. I don't know if they are playing with us or not, but it said verdict reached on a big red banner. I don't know if that is, I don't know. We'll see if there's reporting of that. This is what Verdict Watch is going to be like. We're going to be like, we're just going to do it all together. Shar, I talked about this, I think on an Instagram live. Crying after a case like this, there is A, no shade for, B, no shame for. It is a release of emotion. This had to be a hard case for Elaine. I would never want to try. And I'm going to be hard on Elaine because she mocked Johnny Depp's voice. And there were a few other things that I really didn't like that she did. But this is a hard case to try. It is hard to do this in front of the public eye. 6-week trials are exhausting. So I do not fault her at all for crying. It is a very human response after a very long trial. I also think in closing, she probably didn't get the amount of time she thought. I wonder if Rottenborn rolled over. I wonder, this is pure speculation. I wonder if Rottenborn ran over what he had allotted for closing. And I wonder if then Elaine felt on the back foot to have to cram everything she needed to say quickly. She does not seem to work well under that type of time pressure. I can understand that. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was Rottenborn just running over. Look, there are days it's like, oh, we've been streaming for 3 hours. Fuck, how did that happen? And I just don't know. Or was Rottenborn trying to minimize the amount of time she was in front of the jury? Don't know. That would probably not go well behind the scenes. Is it possible? Anything's possible. So I'm not surprised. So I'm not seeing that headline pop up anywhere else. So we're going to go with it was just a headline. Candy, question, will you please do Cameo? In the meantime, can I get a shout out to my sister April? Shout out to sister April. Can I do a Cameo? Do you guys want me to do Cameo? The only way I'm doing Cameo is if you guys want me to do Cameo. If you guys want me to do Cameo, I will do Cameo. I just don't know. Is that something that the law nerds want? If that is something that the law nerds want, I will just do it. If you guys want that, I will do it. Sorry, I moved away from the mic. Oh, you guys are like, yes. Yes. All right. Let's do a poll. Sure. Miguelina, will you just put up a poll? Should Emily do Cameo? I'm only doing it if you guys want me to do it. Only doing it if you guys want me to do it. So we'll put up a poll. If you guys, seriously, again, I would do this for the law nerds if that's something that you want. Okay. That is something I will do for y'all. It is something I will do for y'all, but only if that's something y'all want. I mean, I feel like we get a good portion because there's so many of you here that we can think, that we can ask. Good morning, Emily from Megan. Love your channel. Thank you. What do you think about the judge's mistakes in the jury instructions? I need to go back and watch for myself what the judge said and do that. So I need to go back and see what the judge said and look at it. I think these are the form instructions. So these have been vetted, and the form instructions being vetted means that they have been run through committees. They have been used before. It's to try to avoid issues. So I think that if there's a confusion, if the judge misstated something, it can be a problem, but I need to go watch what the judge said exactly. So that's, I need to go look for myself at what the judge said exactly. And I have not had a chance to do that. Corey said, hello from Ontario, Canada. Just curious, why is discovery different for Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp? And why was the metadata such a big thing? Discovery shouldn't have been different. It seemed that there was a cell phone dump that Amber Heard's team had advantage of that Johnny Depp's team didn't get from her. They were fighting over discovery up until the end. It shouldn't be different. It's just whether this judge did anything about it. It seemed that the judge didn't. And maybe after trial, we will see more if the judge rules on some of those discovery issues. Post-verdict, I don't know if they will. And it shouldn't be different, but it seems like it was here. Metadata was such a big thing because the way that from the motion for sanctions, the way that the data was being extracted was an issue. And I have on my Quick Bits channel, I have a short video just covering that motion for sanctions and what was said. And that's why it was such a big deal. So that's why it was such a big deal. Y'all are doing the things over here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can the jury look at transcripts of testimony during deliberation? Anna, yes, they can. They would have to generally ask for that. What they are provided in the jury room based on what the court has said is the video, the audio, the photos, and the documents. They don't just give them binders of all of the testimony. They give them the evidence. Here's all the evidence. If they want read back on testimony, they have to ask for it. I don't think they're going to be asking for read back if they're already asking. They're asking the questions that matter. They're asking the questions that help them reach a verdict. And I think if they come back with a verdict for Depp, it's going to be on that sexual violence headline. And I think that's the split the baby. I think that's the compromise verdict. I think they give it to him on the headline. They don't give it to him on the other things. They give the punitive damages of $350 and say, fuck you, and walk away. I think that's beyond reasonable sitting where we're sitting after that question. I heard that Amber Heard is going to be there for the verdict. Is that a good idea? No. It's not. Depp's not going to be there. We know that he's, I guess, in Europe playing music, getting back to his life. I don't think it's a good idea that Amber Heard be there. I'm not a PR person. This is just my perspective, but it gives the media an opportunity, if she loses anything, to get those potentially difficult photos of her. But if her PR strategy, because at this point, they have to look at social media and see that there are lawyers across social media. There are lawyers across social media that that believe that this is it's possible that she loses. And with that, they have to know that that's possible. And when lawyers agree, it's bad. And so we have to presume that they're prepared for that. This might be part of a PR strategy. And the PR strategy on this might be that they are going to say, this is the system protecting powerful men. And they might lean back into that earlier PR statement that we've seen. And we've seen those earlier PR statements saying that Johnny Depp's, that Johnny Depp is blaming the victim, that, this and this and that. So we will see. We will see. So it might be part of their PR strategy. It really might. Because if they lose, if they're prepared for a loss on any counts and prepared to spin it, then it might be part of the strategy that they have her there. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Question: why did you decide to move to Middle Tennessee? Hadassah, I hope I pronounced that right. That is a very much longer answer. I have 2 podcast episodes on it. A lot of it had to do with space, like land space, less people, less traffic, smaller classroom sizes, less state taxes, and just how green it is. And for me, the airport mattered. And the fact that I can get to the places I need to travel to easily from Nashville International made sense. Generally above hurricanes, not severe weather in the winter. So there were a lot of factors. Weather played in, location and proximity to being able to get to the places I need to go played in, school districts, class sizes, acres of land, all of that played in. And we really enjoyed Middle Tennessee. We enjoy the people we live around. We enjoy Nashville. Nashville's a really vibrant city, but it still feels smaller. It's a lot of fun. It's a very, very diverse city. And I will say the thing that I love is that my kids' classes are more diverse than their classes were in Southern California. And that's also been something that I really enjoy. Also, the thing that's different from Southern California, people in Tennessee have like hobbies and stuff. Like they have time to do other shit than just work all the time. And that's something that's been really interesting for me is people like do other things. They go to concerts and see live music and go out to eat. And in California, at least where I was in Southern California, it was so much focused on work because working to live with the cost of living there was a huge, huge thing. And people are not working to live here. They work to make money and then they live their life. And that is something that was really important to us to be able to get out and get to lakes, get to the beach, get to hiking. You can just drive places to hike and park there and then go hike. You can just like go park there. Like they don't even charge you for it. You can just go park and then go hike. And then there's not, 7,000 people there and a line to get in. It's just amazing. So less people was a big, big part of it. And then there's so many universities around here that I found it to be people from all over the country living in Middle Tennessee. And that's been really fun too. So I love it. That's why. That's me. It's a long answer. Also me goes into that answer, but I also have podcast episodes about it. Question. Who was your favorite person who testified? Mine was Morgan Knight. I'm still laughing about that. Sounds schizophrenic. I mean, Morgan Knight had his moments. There's different witnesses I liked for different things. I was fascinated by the life story of some of these witnesses, including the forensic, like the Doogie Howser forensic expert for Heard. I wanted to know more about his life and his work and not about them trying to make him do #AmberTurd. Like I needed more of like his work experience. I don't think we got to see him used in his zone of genius. I loved Dr. Curry's testimony. I thought she was easy to understand, really broke down forensic psychology in a very easily understood way. Loved her as a witness. Really enjoyed Richard Marx, not the singer. Like the deals that this man did, I'm like, where is the book of your life talking about the merch deals for Star Wars? I want to know. You're negotiating like all of the things. I'm fascinated. But then when it comes to like comic relief witnesses, I thought Morgan Knight was like, look, man, like I saw what I saw. I'm here to tell the truth. And Elaine's like, this is being videotaped. He's like, and then you get clapbacks from, Draco to Umbridge, since we've named everyone after Harry Potter characters in this movie, saying, the same could be said of you. I'm like, get it. And I can't imagine that Morgan Tremaine was not nervous about the repercussions from TMZ down the road. TMZ filed that motion to intervene. It was denied. It was very dramatic. It was very dramatic leading up to Morgan Tremaine has tried to intervene or TMZ has tried to intervene to block this witness. Then this witness got to speak. Fascinating. So there were a lot of good moments. I thought one of the sadder witnesses was Johnny Depp's former bandmate who was talking about everyone in his life using him. A good witness. I don't know how it was a great witness for Heard. It made me really, really sad. And I think this trial showed a lot of the kind of crippling dark side of that level of stardom and fame where, you have Dr. Curry saying he's essentially homebound because he's so famous and doesn't want to be disruptive. It was, God, this trial has been so much. And I will be like kind of as I break down closing arguments, going through this more and more. It's so much great testimony. Also, I bought new concealer, under eye concealer, because everybody was talking about the Clé de Peau under eye concealer. So I bought it. It is pretty good. And I'm not good at the makeups, but it is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So I found some new skincare too. Not what I was expecting coming into this trial. What I didn't expect was skincare. I didn't expect that. New sunscreen, new things. Didn't expect it at all. We need TMZ guy on here. I will absolutely ask him if he wants to. He might want to stay on the low to see what TMZ is going to do, but I will absolutely ask. I lost the question I was just doing. Okay. Favorite trial to cover. Well, this is, of trial coverage that's ongoing trial. This one has been the only one we've covered like this because the others have been federal cases. And I gave commentary on other cases on other channels. This is the first one I've done on my channel, which I have very much enjoyed doing with you all. But my favorite case that we've covered on the channel, hands down by far, is the Colin the Caterpillar case. Colin versus Cuthbert. I am still living. I love a sassy social media campaign around these two companies, M&S and Aldi, fighting over fucking caterpillar cakes. I live. If you haven't seen those episodes on my channel, I love them. There is, for those of you that saw the LA Times article, there is a stuffed Cuthbert in my shelves that was sent to me by law nerds. I had two law nerds send them. One sent it from my office, and then G stole it. And then another one was like, here's your replacement so that G has one and you have one. Oh, I loved that case. It was funny. It was over trademarking of cake. It was just ridiculous. Caterpillar cakes. Nothing has beaten caterpillar cakes. And I don't know if anything will beat caterpillar cakes. For all of those in the UK, will you please just, the American audience doesn't know what caterpillar cakes are. Can you just let them know? I will show you a picture. There's a video. It's so good. Just caterpillar cakes. They were my favorite because Aldi's social media team went in, but in a way that was just hilarious. And the thing is, when you have these mega corporations going in, I normally say, look, if you're a party to a lawsuit, just done. But when it comes around that you've got mega corporations with social media teams that are running stuff by legal, I am here for the sass on social media. And you guys, a few of you in the chat have pointed out my second favorite. The Ringo trademark case was hilarious. That was a Law Nerds After Dark. And it was a Law Nerds After Dark because it deals with adult toys and a drummer from the Beatles. So if you want to see the Ringo case, that's on the channel too. That was a fun one to cover. It was just very, very interesting. So I like a good sassy case. We've covered some great cases that were really interesting and legally interesting. Those were the most fun, and that's how I judge. Like, those were fun and they were sassy and fun. I got to say all the cursey words covering the Tasha K case though, because even in the breakdown of the injunction, it says all of the words, and that was interesting too. So that's what it is. Good morning, all. Mega pint of Monster for me today. Happy Tuesday. Everyone be safe and well. Love you all. It's so good to get. We needed a gathering of the law nerds. I work at Starbucks, and during the trial, when someone played with their phone, they were watching you. No way, Haley. Or someone paid with their phone, they were watching you. That's incredible. And I love that they were paying homage to my favorite place. I had to go track down, because of this trial, Starbucks released the oil slick, purple ones. I found one on Etsy. Not on Etsy, on eBay. I'm hoping it actually gets here, which is why I made little Law Nerd cups. Those were for the Patreons. These still need to be done in a giveaway. I'm working on it. Those of you that have been on the channel are like, girl, you were going to do this giveaway like 300,000 subscribers ago. Yes, but then things happen very quickly. How long do they have to reach a verdict? This is an answer no one's going to like, as long as it takes. I hate that answer too. As long as it takes. They have as long as they need. But based on that question, they're getting into it today. You guys, thank you. We're at 592. Based on that question, they're getting into it today. I think based on that question, we could have a verdict today. Do you think the jury actually follows the instructions laid out by the judge? I think so. Instead of just relying on personal feelings, I think so. Here's the thing. It's different when it's one person, But when you have to justify your reasoning to a group of people and you're trying to come to a mutual decision, I think, social dynamics, people want to be seen as reasonable. And they've been there for 6 weeks. I think jurors really do take jury duty seriously. I've seen jury instructions after trial in the verdict room. Thank you all. Or I keep calling it the verdict room. I always mean the jury room. We're on verdict watch. My brain is just there. I've seen jury instructions left behind in the jury room where they've highlighted things and made notes on things, where they've covered the whiteboard and worked out how they're deciding. These are not just one person going, it seems like this or that. This is a group dynamic, and group dynamics can be difficult, but this is a group dynamic where they have to justify their reasoning to each other and have a discussion. And why do you think that? Or why do you think this? And that plays in differently because I think they're all going to take it seriously. Jurors also totally tell on each other if somebody's like watched social media or broken the rules. They totally do that. Sunny Bean says, hi from Perth, Australia. How long until we get a verdict? How long can it go for? As long as it takes. I think if they didn't have a verdict by Friday, on Monday, the judge would start asking like, hey, do you have any questions? But we've already got questions and it looks like they're heading in that direction. So, by the way, I think you're incredible. I've missed watching you. Well, thank you. I know it was like we streamed every day and then it's like, do we do that now? Do we just stream every day? Are we just changing the content plan? Maybe. We'll have a conversation about that after this trial is done. Would love for you to be a guest on my show. Emailed you last week. All the email, we did not get to all the, I have so many emails. I have not gotten through all of my emails. My emails are slammed. My team is going through emails. People also took off for the long weekend, so we are behind. We are getting into those this week. And the team is going through all of the emails. There's been a lot of requests, and I'm trying to make sure I can just space them out so that we have time to get to everything. Could you please fill out the jury form as if you were on the jury? I would love to see how you would decide. Well, I mean, it's just me. I don't know. I think, again, that if they're going to come to a verdict, they're going to come to a verdict. They're going to come to a verdict on the headline that they were just talking about on instruction C. I think that's, if they come to a verdict, I think that's where they come to a verdict. So, am I going to fill it out? We can do that later. We can get into the ACLU stuff. How many exhibits do they have? Oh, they were numbering them into the thousands. So they have a lot between the audio and the photos and stuff. They have a lot of exhibits. I don't know how many actually went back to the jury room. I don't know if we'll see a final exhibit list. I didn't see one up. Let me go look real quick and see. I don't see no, that's a motion to intervene. I don't see a final exhibit list of what went in and what went out. But when we got to like, here's the supplemental exhibit list, we'll see some of these numbers. And this is just for one side. The supplemental exhibit list, they didn't number them in order, but this is the supplemental list, which means it's not the first list. And this has, hold on, we're not done yet. This is Johnny Depp's exhibit list. Hold on, we're still going. Wait, we're not done yet. The supplemental exhibit list got to 1,803. So it's a lot of exhibits. I don't know how many were marked, but when the court was talking about the different exhibits and numbering them, they were in the thousands. Emily, I've seen trials where jury members were able to ask defendants questions to clear things up. Was that ever an option here? No. Why or why not? Local rules, the court rules. I have not worked in a state where that's been allowed outside of federal, like grand juries, where questions were allowed to be asked, where the jurors were allowed to ask questions. So no. They're not allowed to in this case. Why? Because of the local rules and the rules of evidence, where the jurors have to listen to what the attorneys present. It's the attorney's job to present their case, and then the jurors take the jury instructions and decide. Hopefully today. Neither Johnny or Amber will be there today. Would you let a client not show up for a verdict in this case? Yes, for the reasons I stated before. In this case, yes, I would. Elaine asked Vordaer, one of the rebuttal witnesses in front of the jury, does Vordaer count against a team's time? They were denied that one, but no, that I think the court was very, very generous with how the court counted time against Team Heard, who were running out of time a lot. And I think the court was very generous with that. But no, that I think would go under the litigation under the litigation umbrella. Because even when we got to the end and there was 6 minutes left for Team Heard in closing, and Elaine asked the court, can you give us back the time from the sidebars? And the court's like, I didn't take time for the sidebars. I think the court was very generous and patient. Do lawyers have to come in for all questions? Yes, they do have to come in for all questions. Some judges will allow it to be done by phone, but yes, the questions, unless it's, can we leave for lunch? Yes or no. Can we get some water? Yes or no. Can you adjust the air conditioning? If it's logistical stuff, then no, the attorneys don't need to be there. But if it's stuff that is regarding to how they're deciding and questions about the jury instructions, questions about evidence, those all have to be answered. So I guess it depends. Substantive, yes. Practical, tactical, no. Sibris said, sorry for the off topic, but I don't often make it to live streams. If I wanted to go to law school is one undergrad degree better than another? Love your channel. I think it depends on what you're interested in. I would pick an undergrad degree that you're interested in. I think there's room in law for all backgrounds. People tend to do, back in the day, I'm old AF, philosophy, political science, those kinds of things. But I think there's a lot of room for, English majors who have a stunning grasp of the English language. I think there's room for computer sciences. I think there's room for hard sciences. I think there's room for engineering if you're going to go into areas of law, particularly like patent that deals so much with how things work and operate. I think there's room if you want to go into entertainment. I think there's room for a heavy emphasis in media, social media, and marketing. So it really depends on what you're interested in, what kind of law you think you might be interested in. If you're interested in criminal law, defense, or prosecution, that is in criminal justice or in psychology, understanding how people work can be helpful. So no, I think it's what you're interested in. I will always tell you to follow your interest. If there's a particular law school that you are looking at and that is the one you want to go to, you can also ask. And sometimes it's online. You can find out what's the most common undergrad degree for your law school graduates. You can ask them. Simply Neological Holo Taco have collabed with Julian. I'm going to pronounce Somolita wrong. I hope I got it. Solomita. And now I'm freaking out all over the happy. I have not seen that. I will go look for that when we are done. I will go look over on Simply's Twitter and see if it was announced because I wanted to see that. What in the world were her lawyers even what in the world? Tanya, let me try to get this right. What in the world were her lawyers even listening to testimony? Both of them were misquoting like crazy, or am I delusional? No, I think there's two things. One, how they see it might be different. So maybe some of it's their perspective. Some of it is with the misquoting the jury instructions and stuff. I was just like, some of it's perspective. They're like, no, this means this. That's lawyers. How is this even legal? They're arguing. Judge A allowed to stop it? Not unless they're misleading the jury, and then the other side needs to object. So confused. That's why. Zealous advocacy. And the court stepping on zealous advocacy is a problem. If you're not completely, if you're framing things in a way where you're like, that's not how that was framed, it's different than directly misstating. And so those are the boundaries. That is the pinhead that lawyers operate on. Question: in the event of a hung jury, and Amber Heard and Johnny Depp both want a retrial, will they be required to provide entirely new evidence not used in this or the UK trials? No, they can. There's two meanings to this question, and so I'm going to try to answer both. Entirely new evidence, meaning something that's never been heard before, they're not required to do that. But new evidence, meaning they have to bring the witnesses in all over again and do it all over again? Yes. You can't just read a transcript to a new jury and be like, you decide. You have to bring the witnesses in again. You have to do it all over again, starting at the beginning. So you have to present it all over again. And if they have a different judge, they might get different rulings, and more stuff can come in or less stuff can come in. We heard that Team Heard wanted a second police expert to come in about policing and police decisions. And then we heard that Team Depp wanted to have a doctor come in, another MD that was going to testify about Heard's injury and whether Heard's injury was likely or not likely from Depp. So we saw that there was stuff that was kept out in this case. We know that there was stuff that was kept out, and I will do on another Jury Watch stream some of the evidence we didn't see. We know that there was more to Jennifer Howell's testimony. We know that. And so you never know. Different judge, different rulings. So different judge, different rulings. Road to 6K. Emily, should we check in? I feel like we should. We are on that road. We are just like, we are on the road. We are on that path. That is going to happen. Also the metadata. Yeah, also. I hope that they come to a decision. I truly, truly do. So, question regarding instruction 3. Would that mean Spiegel can be nullified? The jury can choose that Spiegel didn't come across the jury can decide that Spiegel's testimony isn't going to be given. Oh no. Sorry, y'all. Hopefully we're back. Are the jurors from Los Angeles or Virginia? Thanks. The jurors are local to that courthouse. So Virginia is where they're from. I want to know how they decided on the jurors. Now, who the heck doesn't know Johnny Depp? They don't have to not know Johnny Depp. That is important. They don't have to not know him. The jurors have to be able to put it aside. Like, can you treat him fairly? Because you're not going to find anyone who is not. Sorry, y'all. I mean, I can refresh. It was probably me. I can refresh it. There isn't weather here today, which is interesting, but I can refresh it. Give me 1 second and I will refresh. All right. We've refreshed. We're back. Hopefully we're back in black. Hopefully we're back in a way that we're not glitching. So it happens. I mean, it's a busy stream. So here we go. We're all just going to take a refresh. We're all just going to refresh ourselves. We're going to fluff our auras and wait for this verdict. Welcome to the world of waiting for a verdict. How did they decide on jurors? So voir dire is a process that I think a lot of you have been interested in. Pop a 1 in the chat if you've been interested to talk about voir dire. We're going to talk about voir dire real quick. They did not show this process on television. They did not show, we do not have the jury questionnaire. We might get it later. All of you are just like, yes. We might get it later. But we didn't see the questionnaire. The questionnaire, we can presume certain things. We've gone through jury questionnaires from the Maxwell case. I've gone through proposed jury questionnaires from the Jen Shaw case that's going to trial in July. We've gone through proposed questionnaires and other jurors. So the questionnaire is going to go out ahead of time and ask, certain questions that might limit who comes in to actually be questioned. So, are you a huge Johnny Depp fan? You're probably not going to come in. Are you a huge Amber Heard fan? You're probably not going to come in. Do you know information about this case? Did you watch the UK proceedings? I think there's plenty of people who just are aware that Johnny Depp was in Pirates, are aware that Amber Heard was maybe their wife, but just didn't pay attention to the UK case, don't pay attention to the internet, and are like, I've got other shit to do with my life. Like, I just don't care. It's fair. It's fair that people exist in the world that don't care about pop culture. I am not people. But even with that, I paid attention to the UK case in the ruling. I didn't pay attention to a ton of the evidence coming out from the UK case until we did this. So, I mean, I didn't have as much background knowledge as others did. That's for sure. So, but I have watched every Pirates movie. I never saw Rum Diaries. Anyway, with that, they will do a questionnaire. From the questionnaire, they will do voir dire in court. Well, they will bring the juries in either one by one or in a panel. The judge will normally ask the question they've agreed upon, and then the attorneys will often be given the opportunity to ask questions. Not always. It just depends on the case. And with it depending on the case, this judge could have just been the only one asking questions, or the attorneys could have too. And they will evaluate whether people can be unbiased, whether, these people being celebrities is going to play into your mind, and they ask questions. And then the judge can kick people. And we talked about this in the Juror 50 motions. The judge can kick people out for cause. So, hey, I know a ton about this case. I've heard audio. I've heard this. I've heard this. That's cause. The attorneys can kick people out, not for cause, with their peremptory challenges, and they get a certain amount, depending on the jurisdiction, of people that they can yeet. Now, they can't yeet them for an illegal, improper purpose, but they can yeet them for almost any other reason, and that's how you come down to a jury. So the judge can kick people out for cause, then you can have peremptory challenges, and then you get what's left, and that's how you come to a jury. The original jury, I think, was 11. And they had 4 alternates because they were going with 7. So 7 are deliberating. They had 11 to start with. They lost 2. I remember one was a health issue. I don't remember the other one. And then they had two additional alternates that at the end sat there for 6 weeks. Not being able to talk about this case. Can't talk about this case at home. Can't talk about this case here, there, and everywhere. Can't talk about it at all. And then you get to deliberate. You finally get to discuss this case with someone else. And it's like, oh, you're an alternate. I just wanted to deliberate this case. I want to be able to talk about it. They can't talk about this case until it's done. So until this jury comes to a verdict, the alternates can't talk about it. They're still sitting there going, and I feel bad for them. I feel for the alternates. That would suck. So for the alternates, they just have to wait. And that's a huge bummer. That's just a huge, huge bummer. So that's how they decide on the jurors. They're never going to find a juror that's not aware of who Johnny Depp is. It's just whether or not they're aware of the evidence in this case, the allegations, and whether they're aware in a way that makes it impossible for them to decide the case, or where they can't be fair. So that's how they decide. Could drawing conclusions be considered guesswork? No. That when they break down the circumstantial evidence, it's reasonable conclusions. So what's reasonable? It depends for this jury. They get to decide what's a reasonable conclusion. And again, a reasonable conclusion is, hey, if the copyright owner sends us a direct video, it normally takes us about 15 minutes to determine copyright. How long did it take in this case? 15 minutes. That's a reasonable inference that, okay, well then the copyright owner is the one who sent it. That's a reasonable conclusion. Or someone who had it directly from the copyright holder sent it. Reasonable. An unreasonable conclusion would be, I don't know, something that is just purely speculative or guessing. So I didn't want to give an example in this case because I don't want it to be, A, it's hard to do on the spot, and B, I don't want to do a bad analogy of something that's an unreasonable conclusion, but something that's just so far afield. Like there is a massive global conspiracy of satellite networks with bot Twitter accounts that really is behind this whole thing. That, based on the evidence, would not be a reasonable conclusion. There, I tried to do it not badly. What do you think is more important, the jury decision or the court of public opinion? I think it depends on who you ask. I wonder if for Johnny Depp, the court of public opinion mattered the most. I wonder if for Amber Heard, the jury decision matters most. What matters most to you? We can do another poll. We did polls. Let's close the poll that we did. And we'll do another poll. We'll do a poll which you think matters more in this case, because I want to know your answer. So the first poll we did is, do you think Amber Heard republished the op-ed? And that was 95% yes, 4% no, with almost 80,000 votes. And the next one, we're going to end the poll about whether y'all want me to have a cameo or not. Again, I'm here for the law nerds. If that's something you want to do, then we will do it. And then we'll put up a new poll about whether you think the court of public opinion matters more or the jury decision matters more. So with cameo, 80% yes, 19% no, with 45,000 votes. Well, 80% of you are like, girl, do it. All right, I will strongly consider doing a cameo for the things. Because I know some of you would like that. So I will strongly consider doing a cameo for the things. And we will put up a poll about what matters more. I think to Depp, the court of public opinion matters more. I think to Heard, the verdict matters more. I'm interested to see what you think. Sister Franny Beaverhausen said, why is no one talking about how when Umbridge accused Waldman of planning witness evidence? Isn't that slanderous? I thought it was an appalling misstatement, and it got pulled right up in front of the court immediately. It came right before the judge, and it got shut down. And then she had to backtrack it in front of the jury, which I think is probably embarrassing. I thought it was kind of a horrific moment. I haven't done my breakdown on closing arguments yet, but no, it's not slanderous because it's in the context of a courtroom, and that is covered by litigation privilege. So even if it is slanderous, or, even if it is slanderous, which is a spoken defamatory, it's not going to be actionable because it's covered by litigation privilege. So it has to be for defamation, it has to be an unprivileged statement. Litigation privilege covers a privileged statement, meaning it's not, even if it is, it's not actionable. How do juries generally go about choosing a 4-person Love Your Channel? There is normally one person, and you'll see it. Speaking of this, y'all have done the things. Oh, I need to reshare my screen. There's normally one person that is kind of the natural leader in the jury, who organizes them when they come back from lunch, who talks to the bailiff. There's normally a person, and you normally see one person kind of rise to the leader of the group. And when they sit down, they're like, okay, the first thing we have to do is vote on a 4-person. You will normally get somebody who says, I think it should be you. And then somebody else will often say, I also think it should be you. Can you do it? And the person will generally say, really? Do I have to? And then they'll vote. And then that person will be the 4-person. There's normally one person that the jury's already kind of looked up to with, hey guys, don't forget 10 minutes until we got to be back in court from lunch, or, there's generally one. So that's how they decide. But they can do a straw vote. They can nominate. I've normally seen people nominate. So it just depends. We're doing, today I forgot my other one, so we got to use the pot. But the lips are getting dry. It was needed. We've been talking a long time. Adriana said, I think if both were violent, making the op-ed would be a continuation of violence, hence defamatory. I don't, okay. And the jury, again, both could lose. It's still a possibility. I have questions about causation. Okay, Tracy, let's see if I can answer them. I don't feel either side proved it. Could the judge void a verdict on that basis? No. SA law has no juries, so I'm a little lost on this one. Causation goes to damages, and the jury gets to decide if causation has been proven. The jury gets to decide the facts. So the jury decides what facts are facts. The jury decides what they believe, and the jury decides if the statements damaged reputation and what, if any, compensation is appropriate. So that's all in the hands of the jury. That's proper for the jury. So once the jury decides, the judge can't undercut it because there is enough evidence here to allow it to go forward. In the rare case where there's not enough evidence, just happened in the Blac Chyna Kardashians defamation case. They never proved Blac Chyna's side, never proved that Kim Kardashian made a statement. So the judge yeeted that count before it went to the jury and was like, nope, the jury can't consider it. You didn't prove it. So that's where we're at with that. I'm from Yorkshire, UK. I think you're bloody fabulous. Well, thank you. How will the verdict be given? The judge or the court clerk will read it. Will it be clear who's won? Who reads the verdict? It should be clear who's won, what they're going to do. And I will pull up the verdict forms again and talk about what they're going to do. So let me pull that up real quick. The judge will go through the special verdict forms, or the court clerk. Sometimes it's a judge, sometimes it's a clerk. In this case, if I'm the judge, I'm having it me. It's gonna be me. If I'm the judge, I'm reading the special verdict forms. I don't want it to get messed up. What I will do is have these up in the background. But we're going to be watching obviously we're going to be watching the screen, but they're going to go through each of these first. So it will be, as to question 1, do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? The judge might read question 1 as to the statement this. Do you find that Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Yes or no? And the judge will read yes or no. And so that's your first, if they read no, then we're going to the next question. If you read yes, then you have to get to malice. There have to be 2 yeses for it to be a win on this count. Same with every other count. And then at the end of those 3 counts, they'll get to damages. So I will be wrapped at attention when this is read out, and they will have to go through all of these forms for Depp and then all of the forms for Heard. If Depp wins, I don't think Heard wins. And I think it's like, oh, well, he won. If he won at least a count, I don't think they're going to find Waldman's statements to be defamatory, because if you find that she defamed Depp, how do you find Waldman saying it's a hoax is defamatory? I don't see logically how you get there. So I'm waiting for there to be another question. Like the fact that they've like so quietly gone back to their work is interesting to me. But again, it's 1:45. So if a verdict came back now, it wouldn't be read until 3:00. So I'm going to answer some more questions. And then if we wrap before we get any news, if there's an alert that there is a verdict, we will just go live again. I'll take a break. We'll go eat. Mary Walsh, questions. Hello from Kilkenny, Ireland. Emily, have you seen the TMZ video where it said Amber leaked the video? I know you hadn't planned to watch outside stuff. I admire you and question if I have attention issues. I think I've made everyone question their own, like, oh, that sounds a lot like me, which is fair. I have seen clips of it on TikTok after this jury went out. I saw that this weekend that there was somebody from TMZ talking about, oh, I think Amber thought by leaking this, blah, 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 blah. The jury doesn't know that, but I did see it. I already was kind of the mind that she fucking leaked it. And the thing is, I think it was splitting hairs. She could have had someone do it on her behalf. Like, here, get this to TMZ. But it came from her. So she might be saying, I didn't leak it because I was not the one who pushed send on an email, or I was not the one who sent the physical video. But she leaked it. It was on her device. She took the video. There's no evidence that it was hacked, that it was stolen, that someone who wasn't the copyright owner sent it. There was no evidence of that. I mean, the only evidence we have is that IO said that IO had seen the video. The video was sent to IO and he had watched it. That's the only evidence we have. There was no evidence that IO is the one that sent it. And even then, it would have taken them longer to determine copyright ownership because IO is clearly not the one who took the video. So I think it's been proven that she leaked it. I think it's been proven that she leaked it. I mean, Whitney could have sent it. And then if Whitney sent it, it was, or absolutely could have been a publicist. Somebody edited it down. It originated from her. But did she send the email? Maybe not. Maybe it was sent by someone on her behalf. Is that still her leaking it for me? Yes. Can you split hairs on the stand and say, I didn't leak it? I mean, that's splitting hairs. I'm not here to argue semantics. Which witness was it that said, I don't have a degree in semantics or whatever? It was one of them. Lori said, why was Amber Heard able to defy court order for the images and metadata? I don't know if we've gotten to what the court has ruled on that yet. Rumor says the sanctions are denied. What happens now? Nothing. If the sanctions get denied, nothing happens. There's an order for that, or there's a motion with regard to that. If that's the motion the court talked about today, like it's out of my hands now that it's with the jury, then that's disappointing. Because I think there should be some consequence for ignoring the court's fucking order. Because if there's no consequence, then lawyers will keep doing that. And that just leads to fuckery. SK, thank you. Biggest fan here. Love you, Emily. You're doing God's work. Well, thank you. I've never been happier for a creator. Badass. Girls ruling the world. Thank you. I've been blown away by the amount of support of people being like, I'm just cheering for you. I'm cheering for the next subscriber milestone. I'm cheering for the good things. I'm proud of you. And I take that to heart. Like the Law Nerd community being like, yes, girl, we're proud of you. Means the world. It means the world to me. It means the world to me. So it really and truly does. And I know I always am nervous when I say I'm proud of somebody. Like I feel proud for Camille Vasquez. And that's in no way for me taking ownership of her accomplishment or trying to diminish her accomplishment. But as a female attorney that went to the same law school as her, I feel so much pride that she had such a kick-ass performance on such a big stage. Like I am just like, yes, girl. And that's how I see proud. And so I know that there's some that's like, oh, well, if you say you're proud of someone, are you taking, I'm not trying to take any ownership of that. I'm just, as a human watching somebody else kick fucking ass in my profession, I'm proud for her. I'm excited for her. I'm cheering her on. I want to see her title on her website change to partner so fucking fast. She's going to raise the esteem of that law firm. Ben Chu's been amazing. But Camille's performance in court has just been a moment. And you expect, old law firm dudes to do well. You expect them to have a good day in court. I thought it was hilarious. Did you guys see, it was a lot of you sent it to me and were like, girl, look, there were stuff going around about Rottenborn being from Stanford and Camille Vasquez being from my law school, Southwestern, and something about the rankings of the law school and blah, 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 blah. Something got delivered. Yay. And I thought it was hilarious because my entire life, like people have been like, oh, well, your law school's ranked this. I'm like, it just doesn't fucking matter. But it's only people who, for me, people that are really just not informed on the law that try to like bash on somebody else's law school. Southwestern, by the way, puts out great litigators. Is it a top 10 Ivy League law school? No. Could I have afforded a top 10 Ivy League law school? No. Going through college with ADD and dyslexia, would I have had the grades to get into a top 10 Ivy League law school? No. Would that have been a place where I was even comfortable? Probably not. And I wonder if the same's true for Camille. Like Camille seems more than smart enough to have gone to Stanford. Is that something that was within her reach economically? I don't know. And so to say, well, you went to Stanford and you went here, that means one's a better lawyer. No, it doesn't. It means one had the ability to not only get into the type of high school that was needed to get to the type of college that was needed to get to the type of grades that were needed to get the type of support that was needed to get the type of scores that were needed to get into that law school and then be able to afford to go there. And that's different than someone who's like, I did this, I paid for this, I went to school. And I would love to know more about Camille's background. And I would love to know more about those decisions. I couldn't have afforded to go to Stanford. I paid for law school myself. And in my immediate family was not the first person to go to law school. My aunt and uncle are both lawyers. That's not foreign to my family. But I'm also not the first one in generations to go to college. That assumption can't be made for everyone. And I don't know Camille's background. So, I'm never going to look at somebody and be like, oh, well, you can't be that good of a lawyer. You went to that law school. Negative, ghostwriter. Not to mention, I think Camille kind of kicked Rottenborn's ass around that courtroom. And I think she did a great job. Being an on-your-feet litigator is very different than being a research attorney or someone who's very, very smart when it comes to the law. It's just different. So, and it is. It's just different. All right. So that is my. Hey, it's always interesting to me when people are like, oh, this law school is not ranked this. It's like, tell me again which law school you went to. I'm waiting. And it is. Same for nursing school. It's not about the school. It's about the person. Agreed. And I think Camille showed her skill as a litigator. And I will say being able to stand on your feet as a litigator is way different than being good at book work and way different than getting the right grades at the right undergrad to get into the right law school. It's a whole different skill set. Not to diminish Rottenborn's accomplishments, but I don't think the mettle of a litigator is tested by where they went to law school. I just don't. So Rottenborn didn't go to Stanford. He went to Stanford. I didn't see that. In form shopping, why did they choose Virginia, requiring higher duty of clear and convincing to prove malice, in addition to the preponderance to prove basic elements? I think part of that was to get into discovery. In California, I think there was a concern, and I think it's fair that there was a concern that the very aggressive anti-SLAPP statute that I've covered a lot, especially in the H3 litigation, the very, very protective anti-SLAPP doesn't allow litigation to go forward into discovery if you lose on the anti-SLAPP. So they would have had to have litigated the shit out of the anti-SLAPP before they could get to discovery. And in Virginia, they didn't have to do that. They get to discovery first. And at the end of the day, the anti-SLAPP wasn't even a defense here because this is an intentional tort. You have that malice element. So the anti-SLAPP can't even be a defense. And so Virginia seemed the clear choice of form because of that. So that's why. What does law school cost? It depends on the law school, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. Law school's real pricey. Law school's real pricey. So, yeah, I came out with well over $100,000 of closer to $200,000 of student loan debt. Hello from Poland. Is it possible to obtain a verdict if one of the parties, after pronouncing the verdict, finds information that one of the jury members used the internet to obtain information about the trial? So is it possible, I'm guessing, to overturn the verdict if there was juror impropriety? It's very hard to speculate without circumstance. But if there is juror impropriety, it would come up in a motion, CIEEG et sec, all the motions with regard to the verdict from Ghislaine Maxwell. The juror number 50 gave interviews. It came up that they had misstated some things on their verdict form, and it was a huge deal. And even with that huge error where I was like, I could see this being a mistrial, it still wasn't a mistrial. It's very, very hard to get to a mistrial with juror impropriety. But if there is clear and convincing evidence of juror impropriety, it will come up in motions and it will be a problem. And it could be a problem on appeal, but we don't have those facts, and it's hard to evaluate without specific facts because it's so fact specific. What are your thoughts on Rottenborn's argument that Amber never added anything to the tweet? That's dumb. We read the tweet. I don't like that argument. I thought Rottenborn's best argument was it's never enough. If you have pictures, they're fake. If you tell your friends it's not enough. I thought that was his strongest argument, that what do you expect? It's never enough. And he leaned into the public policy because the facts were not on his side. But we read that tweet together and shit sure added to it. We just read it today. Question, until what time can they deliberate? Until they are hungry, because the court has made it very clear you can deliberate as long as you like, but we don't serve dinner. So let's see. Doesn't Amber's claims lend to malice per se? There is no malice per se. There is defamation per se. Defamation per se being what we heard in the instruction earlier today, that the statements are of the nature, accusing someone of crimes and others, the statements are of the nature that they're presumed so bad that they're presumed to damage your reputation. You don't have to prove that it wrecked you. It's presumed that it did, but then they have to find damages and they get to decide. So there is defamation per se where you don't have to prove a damage amount, but there is no malice per se. When will there be Emily D. Baker School of Law merch? We need it. I think Law Nerd U merch is in the works. Hey, Emily, why didn't Waldman take the stand and defend or disprove his comments? Because he can't, because attorney-client privilege, and that's why we saw him in deposition. Emily, you are making my cross-country flight a joy. I'm a mirror ball. I'm glad. Yay for Wi-Fi. Waiting and biting my nails for a verdict. Oh, y'all are going to hate it if they go home for the day. What time is it? It's so it's almost 2:00 here Central. So almost 3:00 there. Yeah, it's not going to be fun if the jury goes home for the day after that question that seemed kind of spicy. Emily, Australia audio. Okay. Hot Sauce Ross. Australia audio with third-party voices. Why can't they just mute those sections and still play the clip, similar to how visual exhibits can have portions redacted? I don't know why they didn't do that. There might be issues from those I know in Australia. There might be issues about whether that was legally recorded or not, but they could stipulate about it because they're not playing it in Australia. I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know what the rulings were to keep it out. I hope one day we learn. We may never. Can you tell us what the process for jury summons is in the US? I realize the process is unique in comparison to other countries. It depends on the jurisdiction. Normally, they use either the voter rolls and send them out randomly, or the DMV records, or both. So they use the DMV records and the voter, and they randomize it and send out, and you get it in your mail that you've been summoned for jury duty. How that works more behind the scenes practically, I really don't know. How long did the UK jury deliberate? Dixie Doodles, there was no jury in the UK. It was a judge, and I don't remember how long it took the judge to come to a ruling. The chat probably knows. Oh, wise chat. Oh, wise chat. Oh, wise chat. Do you know how long the judge took? The judge took it under advisement for a while. So the judge took it under advisement. I saw a question fleeting, and I didn't have a chance to grab it. I saw it go. The flight attendant never came in to testify, and we never heard anything about it. Carolyn said, although Johnny Depp can be seen as verbally and emotionally, though that's questionable, abusive, why didn't they point out some victims retaliate that way in an attempt to get the abuser to leave them alone? I think they were trying to get to retaliatory violence with or retaliatory behavior with Dr. Hughes, but they did not spend much time on it. I do not know why. I think they didn't want to put Johnny Depp's mental in question. They didn't put his frame of mind in question. And getting into the retaliatory violence, I think, is something that both parties can argue both ways. I think they were hoping, I think Team Depp, speculative, was hoping to use what Dr. Hughes said, and Dr. Hughes kind of fell apart on cross because Dr. Hughes started to talk about it a bit. But they really didn't get into it much. They sure didn't. Question, can an opposing counsel request a drug test for experts? I don't know how they would. They should vet their experts before they pay them. Sue and the Little Feather says, can you shut up my mom, Jody? Hello, Mom, Jody. Susie Smith, I pulled this up earlier and said I'd get back to it. Now we're finally circling back. Can the jury find for both Depp and Heard on different counts? I don't think so. Thank you. You're a wealth of information. By the way, I live in Fairfax County. That must have been interesting. Have you driven by the courthouse? It seems like it's a circus outside. I don't think they can, because if you find Heard's statements defamatory, then is calling the basis of her statements a hoax defamatory. And that's why I don't think they can. It doesn't mean they won't. I just don't see how they get there. But in theory, anything is possible. So in theory, anything is possible. You guys, we clicked over to 593. Look at y'all. If Waldman came out and said that Depp had nothing to do with his statements, would that squash whether Depp was involved? The jury might just say, or Heard's team would just argue he's protecting him. But once you can't waive attorney-client privilege, like for just the little thing. And I think that opens a can of worms they didn't want to get into. Wacky Fluids Nerd. I love this name so much. Physics grad student here. I deeply enjoyed your comments. The trial process is so interesting. It is. What are your thoughts on the judge's role balancing law versus morals for this particular trial? I don't think the law has to I don't think the judge has to balance morality. The judge has to stick to the law. The judge has to balance it internally for themselves, but the law comes first in the court of law. So the law comes first. And so I don't think there's a lot of balancing for the judge. When it comes to things like sentencing, then I think judges are balancing the law, the interests of society, the interest of the person in front of them. But in a civil case, it's just calling the law and ruling on, it's umpiring, essentially. It is or it isn't. I think the judge's own integrity, but I don't see judicial integrity as morality. I see that as like a fundamental function of a judge. That's like deeper almost than one's own morality. It is the integrity within your profession, if that makes sense. So anyway, jury, not judge. You guys are saying jury, not judge. Sorry, it's jury, not judge. See, I read things wrong. Chat, this is why you're wise and you're here. It says jury. That's fair. I misread things. For the jury, I think it's really hard. And I think the jury is the voice of the public. So I think the jury has to balance it. Sorry. I think the jury absolutely has to balance it internally, and that's why you have discussions. So that's absolutely why you have discussions. So, sorry for reading it wrong. Apologies. Barbarian Bay. So my grandma's name is Elaine, and it looks like Elaine. This was rough to watch. Definitely felt kind of bad, and I definitely felt kind of bad. I definitely felt bad. Well, I'm sorry, grandmother Elaine. I'm sure you were lovely. This Elaine was a rough one to watch. Not all Elaines. Danny Bird, question, is it true that Amber had 3 previous lawyers who dropped her? I didn't follow the ins and outs of her legal team. I know there was another legal team that did some of the depositions back in 2019. The questioning was much better. I don't know if they dropped her or she dropped them, but there were previous counsels. I would have to go back and dig through the record to see if they filed stuff in here, but there are definite instructions. Sleepless in Florida. She said finding instruction item C and then said questions. Oh, it's red and I can't write it. Questions 1 and 3. I didn't hear her say questions 1 and 3, but let me go look. We can do it again because the special verdict form, she might have said questions 1 and 3. Let's go back and look at the special finding. No, that's the verdict form. I don't want the verdict form. I want the jury instructions. Let's go look real quick. Finding instructions. So She might have said 1 and 3, and I just didn't catch it. That's why we watched it multiple times. Let's see. And then at some point I'm gonna have to break and eat, and we'll be on jury watch. 1 and 3. This is 1. So the statement, and that makes sense that it's the statement. I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. So they're saying, is this 3 the statement false? So is this the statement, and the statement being false, does that go to the whole op-ed or just to this? I think that's a fair question. So thank you, Sleepless in Florida. Do we know who the foreman is? We do not know who the foreperson is because the judge didn't say it. It's normally signed by the foreperson, and we don't know who the foreperson is because the judge didn't say the number. I want to know too. Any reason Team Johnny Depp didn't ask Amber why, if she didn't sell it, she was upset to see a video she took suddenly on TMZ or care about how they got it. I think they asked along those lines. I don't remember exactly how, but I think they asked along those lines of, you didn't do anything to correct it though. So I think, but I would need to go back and look. Again, I'm going back and looking at closing. It's been 6 weeks. And I think they talked about it the first time when they were cross-examining her about the leak to TMZ with the this moment. But also on cross, you want to ask yes, no questions. You don't want to give her a chance to explain. That's what redirect's for. You don't want to allow her to explain on your time because she's been explaining in circles. April said, will you please send a text for verdict reading? Of course I will. For those of us unable to watch, of course I will. Of course I will. If there is a verdict while we're on, I will send a text. If there is a verdict while we are not on, I will send a text. What do the attorneys do during this phase of trial? Do they simply sit around and answer questions that the jury might have? Yes. Yes, they have to be present. They have to be within 10 minutes of the court, and they have to try to answer emails, check back in the office, life things, eat. But it's hard. It's hard to focus on anything else while you're waiting. Detective Seeds, love your content. Wanted to share a little love. Hi, chat. Thank you, Detective Seeds. Appreciate it very, very much. Thank you for the support. Stella said, hello from Spokane, Washington. Hope to see you on other trials after this case. I will be. Me and my 3 Belgian Malinois pups say hi to your 2 ginger kitties. My ginger kitties will probably be terrified of the Malinois. I think Malinois are such beautiful dogs. Keep your great content. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I will. I mean, there's a lot of other cases I've been covering. They're not streaming at this point, but there's a lot I've been covering. Thank you for getting me through my immunology and immunotherapy infusion today for stage 2 melanoma, preventative care. I'm so glad you are taking care of yourself. Would love for you to share this and spread awareness for melanoma. It affects all ages. Been here from 30K, you rock. Well, there we go. Thank you for sharing and take care of yourself. Jason said, if they are only considering the statement, wouldn't that eliminate the content of the article as defamatory? I worry about what that means. They're trying to answer in that question, in context, is that statement defamatory? They're trying to just answer it on that. So you guys, we asked what matters more, court of public opinion, court of law, 64% court of public opinion, 35% court of law. Thank you guys for voting in that poll. Something is going on in my hallway. Can the jury be transparent with each other? They should be. The jury should absolutely, and after a 6-week trial, should have that trust with each other to be able to be pretty transparent. They should. Is there any truth to the article suggesting Heard is being investigated and could face jail time for perjury? I have no idea. Also, shout out to my daughter's mom, Kendall, since I know she watches. Hello, Kendall. You rock. Thank you. Adam, I don't know. I don't know. We will see what happens from here, and we will see if those reports die down or amplify. Sarah said, if the jury only finds for Depp with regards to the op-ed title about sexual violence, do you think the public will then think they found evidence that he was still abusive, ergo he is still represented as an abuser? I don't know what the public will think. What I would think is that the legal standard for defamation, if they can find that there was abusive behavior, and the way abuse is defined, particularly within this trial, I don't want to try to talk about all abuse ever because it's too broad. But within the context of this trial, they have heard about the coercive control. They've heard about the yelling, the slamming violence, all of these things they've heard are parts of abuse. So is it reasonable for the jury to say, yeah, literally she was the face of domestic abuse? Even if we don't believe she was abused, they could find that statement to be literally true and not find the defamatory implication high enough. So I think a lot can be read from it. And we'll see what they do and then read from it then. What does fluffing your aura do? I'm a mirror ball. It's a joke from Housewives of Salt Lake City. When one of the housewives from Salt Lake City, Whitney, would get flustered, she's like, I am. So that's how it became a joke. I also have a facial roller somewhere. It went back in my bathroom that Sutton used when she was stressed. So it's become a joke on this channel. Question: do certain occupations prevent you from serving on a jury? Being a lawyer in the jurisdiction where the jury is sometimes will have you yeeted very quickly from jury duty, especially if like you're a district attorney in the area and the district attorney's office has one of your colleagues on your jury. One of your colleagues can't really be your juror. That would be improper. If it's a case leading heavily on a police expert, they might kick off people who are in law enforcement because they have so much specialized knowledge. But no, it's not a blanket. If you're in this profession, you can never be on a jury, unless like judges, I don't think can do jury duty. But other than that, it depends on the case. It really depends on the case in the profession. Question: I was a little surprised Depp's team didn't try to use Hughes' testimony of reactive violence to mitigate any perception Johnny Depp used violence. I think they didn't want to give any credence to Dr. Hughes at all, and maybe that's why they didn't lean into it. I was surprised too. Much love for Northeast Arkansas. Thank you, Southern Mama. Thank you for breaking down legal jargon for us lay people. We're here for the legal muggles. We appreciate you. You're welcome. I appreciate y'all too. Camille Vasquez, Emil Clooney. Oh, I like it. Emily D. Baker. These are the kind of role models we need more of. Yes, we do. Oh, wait, you're putting me in the category with Camille Vasquez and Emil Clooney. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm a girl with a microphone and a law degree. I don't know if I belong in that category, but thank you, Carly. I appreciate it. But yes, I think that's the one thing about the internet is you get to see people do their best. Like it would have been tragic to not have seen Camille Vasquez doing cross-examination. We all would be worse for it, I think. I think we all would be worse for it. So that's what I love about having open courtrooms. Pretty sure Amber heard, pretty sure AH heard Boss music when Camille took to the cross the last time. I'm sure she heard it. She knew it was coming. She knew it was coming. Will there be a reality show called Keeping Up with the Rottenborns in 20 years? That would be hilarious. I would watch it. Sorry, what I meant is if I didn't see the previous thing, so I'm sorry if these are out of order. If you engage in IPV, making the op-ed saying you don't could be seen as more violence. Oh, okay. Yes, I did get the first one. Yes, I knew what you mean. Defamation per se could be IPV, and there's evidence that AH committed IPV. I get it. I hear you. Voted for law. Initially, I believed public opinion more important, but I think it would be depressing if this sets a benchmark that anyone can do this, and it would take a trial like this to try to rectify public opinion. I think that's a fair concern. Like, I think that's a really, 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 really fair concern because there is a big concern about, how damaging these things are, showing how damaging they are. And then what happens if anyone can do it? So, yeah. So let's see. Questions, apologies if this has been answered. How do they ensure jury members are not aware of public opinion? Well, they brought it right to their feet in this case, but they're supposed to be off of social media and not talk about the case. It's those instructions we hear the judge give. How do they enforce it? Practically, it's very difficult unless another juror says something. Like they go back to deliberate and a juror is like, oh my God, at the barbecue this weekend, everyone was telling me this and this and that. It would be up to the other jurors to be like, excuse me, bailiff, this juror was talking about the case over the weekend, and it would be up to them. So Hilmar, thank you so much for the super chat. Tuning in from Norway, been following you with my bestie for weeks now. Shout out to Chrissy, who pulled me into the community. Thank you, Chrissy. Your commentary rocks. Thank you. I made a meme of you based on Team H crosses, sent it to IGDMs. I'll go see it. May we see it on the stream? Hold on. Let me see if I can get into my DMs without exposing them on the stream. I will see if I can do that. Let me go see. I don't know. It is always hard for me to get to Hilmer. I'm hoping that your name on Instagram is the same. My Instagram DMs are wild. Oh, there it is. I see it. All right, hold on. Let me try to pull this up. Let's see. This. What if any? No. I like the old school Batman reference. That's how I feel every time I find myself saying what if any. So thank you. Yes, we absolutely may see it on the stream. Hilmer, thank you for sending that. I appreciate it. And yay for technology that I, was able to pull things up somewhat competently over on the Instagrams. Yay. Oh, no, this is from earlier. I flipped back and it seemed like a lot of attorneys were in court, but they're not. Okay. I'm going to be jumpy this whole time. We're going to be jumpy. We're just going to be jumpy. Which lawyers did Jen Howell yell at the end of the depo? I have no idea. I can only imagine it was Team Heard, but I have no idea. That was my guess, but we don't know. Do you think Umbridge will be able to come back from this? Her methods were bad, but Miss Heard may have been a tough client. I think that she's respected within her legal community. I think that other clients might like the way that she tried the case. I mean, when you look at cases, there's some clients who are like, I want blood. Are you going to be willing to go there? And they might see it, especially if you're not looking at going to trial. I imagine a lot of the cases that these attorneys deal with, especially Elaine, just stop after depositions and don't get to trial, which might explain some of the trial behavior. I have a family with a diagnosis of HPD and BPD, and I don't think they can truly have meaningful interactions. I mean, I don't know. I don't have thoughts. I am not a professional. I can't speak from own experience. So I just truly don't know. I would hope that anyone who is suffering with any type of mental illness finds a way to make their brain work for them so that they can have the most fulfilling life possible. That is what I hope. I think treatment is needed for a lot of us for that, but it's my hope for everyone. So, confession, Hubs and I watched you on flight, in hotel, and on breaks during Star Wars Celebration. I wanted to go to Star Wars Celebration. Now home in Phoenix, watching and not unpacking. Thanks for making learning fun. You're welcome. I'm going to have to make it to Star Wars Celebration next year. I really wanted to go. I've been enthralled with the content. You're welcome, Derek. And you have a great screen presence. Well, thank you. Thank you. I love doing this. This is my favorite shit ever. Hello from NorCal. Do you know the next case you're going to dive into? Can you say hi to my wife, Jennifer? Hi, Jennifer, watching on the DL from work. Shh, we won't tell. There's only like 126,000 of us watching. It's fine. Amongst friends. Law nerds are friends. We won't tell. Next case I'm going to be diving into, is the cases. We need to circle back with all the cases I've been following, and we'll get into that more as we get into Verdict Watch if we do in future days. So the cases I have been watching, and then I want to go and watch the Jen Shaw case. It's not going to be televised. So it would be a day of me in court watching and then streaming and telling you what happened. That is my hope for my next case. That's a trial that goes to trial that I cover. If Amber had, Joe said, if Amber had a true and agreed on diagnosis, could she be considered disabled as in unable to tell the truth, unable to take the stand? I have not done the mental evaluation of how that would work. I think that might be a double-edged sword for her, because how do you work again if that's what you do? She went with PTSD. I think they could have leaned into, this is not odd testimony. This is her. She believes it to be literally true because of her diagnoses. But I think that could be a career-ending argument. And that's something they would have had to evaluate with her lawyers very, very closely. Are we going to lean into what they're trying to say about you or not? And that's a very, very long conversation. Vegas said, what do you think of the Sussman case where he was found not guilty about? I don't know anything about that case. So I'm sorry, I don't have thoughts. I normally have thoughts about everything. I don't know. Question, how does the lead juror get selected? Oh, we talked about that a bit earlier. They don't need any previous experience. It's kind of a group thing. It's like, hey, are you the one in charge of this? Great, thank you. I don't know. How does a group of friends have somebody who's the one who's in charge of making all the plans? It's just, can you please do this? Thanks. And the jury, I've never seen juries have difficulty coming up with a 4%. Thank you. We're just cruising. We're cruising, y'all. We have cruised on this road to 600K. Thank you. How do perjury judgments happen? Can they only be brought against a person if the ruling is against them? No. Are they separate proceedings? Yes. I've gotten asked so much about perjury. Perjury is difficult to prosecute. It is criminal. You can also get into violating court orders, different than perjury. Perjury can be prosecuted criminally, but it has to be investigated, it has to be material, and then it has to be prosecuted. So if that is brought up, and we saw Adam Waldman say, I went to the sheriff's to report that perjury has been engaged in, and they were like, eh. And that is often the law enforcement response. It's like, and the perjury case that I tried, and as a DA, I tried one perjury case. It was in a case where it was a material issue against a city, and the city was using their city attorney to try to make sure that this went forward. By the time it got to the DA's office, the city attorney had investigated all of it, presented it to their own city police, and was like, this is the case we have, write it up, send it to the DA's office. And our office took it because it was on video. They were confronted with the fact it was a falsity. And we see this with like the Sherry Papini case too. You lied to officers, and they said, you know it's a lie under oath. You know this. And it was statement after statement after statement. It's a rare case, but generally it has to cost something for it to be taken up by prosecutors. So when you see stuff in court and you're like, that seems like perjury, versus when it gets prosecuted, are very far apart. But people do risk perjury if they lie under oath, and you never know when it's going to get investigated or prosecuted. Why was Elaine crying after crossing? Probably because she's exhausted. Probably because she's exhausted, overwhelmed. That is probably because I imagine she didn't have enough time to do her closing, and it's just so. Hot Sauce Ross, I know we got into that one. Thank you. Let's see. Allison was question. I'm annoyed. That sounds like a statement. Question. I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed people watching this trial are being scolded like they're perverted children. We're just going to read it. It's obvious most opinion writers aren't watching the trial. Should the discussion be about when #MeToo goes too far, or the danger of believe all women? I think the discussion is about this case. I think there's room for a discussion about using a movement for your own gain. That's a discussion that should be happening after both this case and the Smollett case. I think there's a question of when is it okay to ask questions? And that's really where I am on this case. Is there has to be room for believe people when they tell you what's happened to them. Believe people. Not just women, people. Believe people when they tell you what happened to them. But also there has to be room for, and asking questions doesn't mean you don't believe. Asking questions mean you're allowed to ask questions. There has to be a room in there. I don't think I'm the one to construct that room. I just see room for, you have to be able to ask questions. You have to be able to believe people when they tell you things. So where the opinion writers have been a problem for me is that I agree with you that it's clear they're not watching the same trial day in and day out. And there has been a lot of hand wringing in the, I found myself defaulting into saying mainstream media, but it's not that. It really is legacy media. And it's really defaulting into, when do we have a conversation about the legacy media? And when do we have a conversation about legacy media controlling a narrative that's separate from what we're seeing in court? And that's a very, very valid conversation, like a valid conversation. So valid. Question. Can you give, this is not a question. This is a request for shout out, but yes, the Wicked Bliss. Can you give a shout out to my girlfriend, Ashley? Shout out, girlfriend Ashley. Also, do you think we will get a mega pint of justice by the end of the day today? We're getting close to, we might not get a verdict today. So if they are on C, does that mean something good for Johnny Depp? No, it means they're starting to talk about verdicts, because that's the first one. It means they had a question on the first one. What is the wording of the verdict for each scenario? Bethany, well, I think this was an older super chat. I hope that was cleared up when we went through all of the verdict forms. What, if any, academic nurse, what, if any, repercussions can an expert witness have regarding incorrect testimony, i.e. RN said she was not trained to assess skin scalp, which are basic skills? I think it's professional repercussions. I don't think there's court repercussions unless they've lied, but I think there can be professional repercussions for it. I also think once you're an expert and you have bad testimony out there, especially televised, it will come back. If they ever testify as an expert again, it will come up, but you said you couldn't do this, but you said you couldn't do this. Is there really an error in the jury instructions? CJ, I didn't see an error in, or is it CJJ? It might be CJJ. I didn't see an error in the jury instructions. What I'm hearing is the way the judge read them leads to some confusion. I have not juxtaposed what the judge said to the jury instructions. I have just not had time yet, but will. Question, when it asks if the statement was false, is that only on the face or with the defamatory implication? With the implication. And that's where all the jury instructions play together. Question, you're absolutely gorgeous. Thank you. Do you do your own hair? Not to color it. And thank you for doing what you do. You're an inspiration. Sarah, thank you. I don't color my own hair. I have a very skilled stylist to do that, to make sure I don't wreck my hair. That was one of my biggest concerns when going for the brighter colors. I just didn't want to destroy my hair. I was worried that I could very easily do that. So I went to a professional. But on the day-to-day, I am capable of using a wand hairdryer, and that's about it. And that's my Amazon. The Revlon one, the big Revlon one, it's the best. So I'm capable of using that. If you were on Amber Heard's team, what would you do differently? Likewise for Johnny Depp. Oh, that is probably an entire podcast episode. And it's hard because anything I say with regard to what I would do differently does not take into account what the client wants. It would be my legal brain. What would my legal brain like to see? What my legal brain would like to see, in addition, what these lawyers' legal brains might like to see, because Rottenborn had a very linear opening. What the lawyers in their legal brains might like to see versus what their clients want are divergent sometimes. And so I don't think I would have put Amber Heard up on the stand again and rebuttal to start with. I think she probably wanted to do that. I don't think they had enough time left. I'd start there and work backwards. But again, that doesn't take into account client-directed decisions. I'm going to try to get to a speed round of a few more super chats and just let you know, then we're going to wrap up and go back on jury watch. If you are not part of the text crew, if you are in North America, your cell phone company should let you do that. Not all cell carriers in Mexico do. I have learned. Thank you for all of you that have told me. TextEmily.com. When I go live, I will send you a text. If you want to just follow me on social media, you can do that. I do not charge to be part of the text crew. Regular text messaging rates may apply. You can do that there. So I'm just going to let you know you can do that there. You can also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Sometimes YouTube's a little slow on that, which is why I did the text crew and why I also share on social media. So that's why I do both. And let's see how many of you have decided to just follow along with me as we do these last few questions here. A lot of you. There is noise happening that is so distracting. Jeremy said, love watching you. Thank you. You remind me of a family friend, Les, and had to show my mother. She and Les worked together in a firm. She immediately said, is that Les's long lost sister? Love it. Now she loves your reactions and your knowledge. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've gotten so much tremendous support from other professionals in the field. And a lot of my colleagues that I worked with at the DA's office have reached out and they're like, girl, you have purple hair. I saw you in the LA Times. You're living your best life. I'm like, I am. And it's really fun to see my coworkers also celebrating along with, thank you for, being sparkly and sharing your voice. Why do you think Amber requested to seal the jury's identities for a year? How does this benefit her? Okay, you're asking for pure speculation and I love it. Thank you, Abdullah. Let's speculate. Why does it benefit Amber Heard if the jury can't be contacted by media for a year? I think they are worried that if Amber Heard does not win, or if Johnny Depp does win, that they don't want the media to be able to find the jurors, because I don't think they want the jurors, me jumping into the brains of someone, I don't think they want the jurors being like, oh yeah, we didn't believe her at all. We just didn't believe her at all. We didn't like her. We didn't believe her. The evidence didn't match, because it makes it a lot harder for them to do their PR machine things. That's my cynical speculation. But also maybe because this is a high profile case, they want to be sure that the jury's not hounded by media and that their identities are safe so the media can't reach out to them. But the jurors can choose to identify themselves and reach out to the media if they want to talk about this case, just like Juror 50 did after the Maxwell case. The jurors can choose. So how does it benefit her? Maybe they're assuming that If the jurors don't have nice things to say, they don't want them saying them, the jurors can still make that decision on their own. I'm going to leave this up until we click over to 594 as we answer a few more questions because we're almost there. Do the jurors need to individually corroborate their verdict? Yes. Or can they just be like, juror X wins despite of all the instructions? They will be polled on their verdict at the end. So it will be juror number 1, 2, 3, whatever seat number. Is this your verdict? Yes. Is this your verdict? Yes. They generally get polled on their verdict. So it needs to be each of their verdicts. But how they decide that? No, they're not allowed to be questioned about how they decided something. Not by the court anyway. They can choose to share that. Thanks, everybody. Road to 600. One thing I took away from Johnny Depp's doodles, he has complete competence in his complete confidence and competence in his team. Amber Heard was constantly passing notes. Johnny Depp seems like a client who was, once they got to trial, was like, I trust you. And that's what you need in your lawyers. You need for them to have your back, and you need to trust them and let them run their race. Switching course is not good. If you've plotted a path at opening statement, you need to be able to run that race through closing and only shift if something changed, like actively changed. Not feelings, not social media, actively changed. Question, UK depots, evidence or testimony? Neither. They're prior inconsistent statements generally, but where they come in with regard to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, they can be taken as testimony or they can be taken as the prior statement. I speculate that Camille's question regarding closing was because she wanted to play the UK depot where Amber Heard seems to admit to tipping off the press to the TRO. And it was powerful, and she did. But I think that's why they weren't allowed to do it, because the depot, the videos, are testimony, and you can't play the testimony. And you can just use a transcript. That's why they were only allowed to play evidence during closing. So can defamation be found without also finding actual malice? Not in this case with celebrities, with public figures, but with private individuals, yes, it can. With private individuals, you don't have to show actual malice. With public figures, you do. How public figures is defined varies by jurisdiction. So, let's see. Brittany over on the Facebook said, what's your take on the doctored photos shown during trial? I think it was powerful, demonstrable evidence, because it's like, okay, if you're showing these two photos that are exactly the same and saying they're different, what else are you saying is the same? I think it was powerful, demonstrative. I think it was really, really powerful. Really, really, really powerful. What was the text link again? Absolutely. Textemily.com, just from your mobile phone. Type in textemily.com in your browser. It will take you there. Just say hi, and it will get you to where you need to be. Let me put it back up on the screen. So from your mobile phone, just so. Let's see. All right, I'm going to get to just a few more questions. Question, in trials, are there always closing arguments? Yes. If it's a bench trial, they might waive it if it's not in front of a jury, but with a jury, yes, always, always. And even with a bench trial, you would do a brief closing argument. They're the best part. If someone who fits the correct profile of a juror lies about being a juror and contacts the media and talks about their reasoning, what consequences can there be? I've never even thought of somebody trying to fake being a juror. I mean, I don't know. Impersonation? The media needs to vet people better? I'd never even considered that as a possibility. Maybe on the media for needing to vet people better. Maybe. So I see you guys asking how much longer to a verdict. Till they're done. Chapter 8 said, regarding law school ranks, it really only seems to matter in terms of being able to get big law salary or certain clerkships immediately out of law school. But I think Camille wants a big law salary now. She can get it for sure. And if I'm Camille, it seems that their firm works so well together. Like, I saw a tremendous amount of trust and support and teamwork. I imagine that they like the firm where they work. So I imagine they do. Does the jury have their notes in deliberation? Yes, they do. What is taking you so long? Those verdict forms have a lot of fucking questions, and they have to talk about every single one. Did you see how many questions were on those verdict forms? It's a lot. What will happen with the sanctions? I don't know. The judge addressed that she wasn't ignoring Ben Chu on a motion. We don't know which one. I don't know. We will see. We will see. Oh, we're not even close to the jury can't reach a verdict. We're not even close to that yet. I gave this jury 3 to 6 days. We're in day 1 because they only had 2 hours the other day. So I didn't really expect a verdict today. When we got that question, I was like, oh, they're starting. I don't know if we're going to get a verdict today. And if we don't, we'll probably get one early tomorrow and I'll stream for that. Do you think the jury has already said yes to Depp proving defamation if they are asking about question C? I think they wanted to be clear before they started answering those questions. So I think they wanted to be clear. And for those of you just coming in, I talked about Johnny Depp and the ACLU earlier, and it will be timestamped in the replay crew. So I don't know if we'll get a verdict today. Wowza Cardoza. I don't think we'll get it. I don't know. I was optimistic with that question, but now I'm like, it's 3:30. Melissa said, I'm leaving for the dentist. I will be holding my phone waiting for a text. Thanks, Emily. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So question, will the jury 4-person announce the verdict for the public to see? Will the foreman be shown or heard on TV? I imagine in this case, if it's not the normal procedure in Virginia, I imagine in a case this high profile, the judge will be the one to read the verdict or the court clerk. But if they have the 4-person read the verdict, then yes, you would hear them, but not see them. So I addressed this a bit earlier, H. Bungo, about why she would have requested it. It's just speculation. It's not improper. I mean, it can be done. It's done a lot. But it makes it harder for the media. If the media doesn't have the phone numbers of the jurors or the names, it makes it harder to find them and ask them for statement. Does it affect anything, the fact that Amber Heard's team did not address many of the points that they said they would in opening? It matters to me. It might not matter for the jury if they remember. Julie said, hello from Anchorage. If Johnny Depp wins, could the jury award him more in damages than what he's suing for? Yeah, they can determine compensatory damages higher. Punitive damages are capped at $350. They can decide what they want. Do you think it would be better if the jury was only made of lawyers? No. Not peers, just people who understood the law. No, because part of our jury system is the human element and a jury of your peers. I don't know if we want lawyer. I mean, I'm going to be cynical for a minute. A lot of our government is made up of lawyers. I don't know if they can always decide what's best for us. I think the people to decide what they tolerate in their community are the people in that community. And I think that that's where our jury system shines, is it's people from the community saying, no, this, like, there was a case we had in Long Beach. It was an assault case, and it was a dad who assaulted his kid. His kid was over the age of 18, not a minor, but assaulted his kid, and he was on trial for it. And the dad's testimony was, my kid was part of a street gang. My kid was going out to commit crime. I knew he was going out to commit crime. I was trying to prevent him from leaving the house. When we didn't, we got into a physical altercation, but I felt a duty as a parent to try to stop my child from harming someone else. And that's how we ended up in this physical altercation. And then the kid called the police and the dad was arrested for assault. The jury was like, not an assault. Not an assault. Nope. We're not convicting you of that. So there are cases where the jury looks at the evidence and goes, no, that's just nope. Negative, Ghost Rider. And juries can do that. And that's where having members of the community determine what their community is. And so that happens where the jury was like, nope. Sarah Stewart, thank you. Hi, here, a dyslexic and ADD from Argentina. Thanks for helping us around the world understand how your justice system works. Does the jury only answer the questions in the verdict, or are they allowed to write a statement or foundation why they reached their decision? They just fill out that special verdict form. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That's it. That's all we're going to get from them is this. Yes, no, yes, no, yes. Thank you, Sarah, for your kind words. And I love how international our audience is. If you guys want to go ahead and pop your flags down in the comments so everybody can see them. I love how international the law nerd crew is. I love it. 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 But this is it. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Love it. Love it. Love it. So that's all they're saying. They're not going to say anything else at all. So you guys, it's just, I love it. Thank you for sharing where y'all are coming in from the fine nation of football. We love that too. We love it. 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 Thank you guys. And that's been so incredible seeing our international law nerd crew learning about how our system works, how juries work. And for some of y'all, I know that's wild. You're like, wait, what? Just people off the street, people that have jobs, people who don't do this, people who just have jobs, they just get like, whoop, yes. And then they decide. Members of the public decide the facts in this case with the law that's presented to them by the judge. This is wild that we're almost at 595. People from the community out of their everyday lives. God, I sound like it's the beginning of the fucking Hunger Games. That's not what I mean. But they sit on the jury and decide the facts. And the judge gives them the law. The jury instructions are the law. They decide the facts, and they decide if those facts match that law to say that this thing happened or didn't happen. And that's a really incredible thing about our system. Our system's very reactive. Our system of justice came from like, hey, we don't want to do that the way that you're doing it in the UK. We left the crown and we're going to go be rebels and like create our own thing and be like, this is what we're doing. The history of the US justice system is very, very interesting. Yes, a lot of law nerds are pirates. I've seen a lot of pirate flags as well, which, you know, we love. So, love. Thank you, everyone. Law nerds. It is 3:40 in the East. If the jury came back now, the verdict would be read at 5 p.m. I am going to get food and go see my kids and say thank you. Thank you for being here. If the jury doesn't come back, when the jury leaves for the day, I will send out a text and be like, the jury is done for the day so that you're not on high alert. And then we will just resume tomorrow. I intend to be ready to stream tomorrow morning. The jury should be back at 9 a.m. So I intend to be ready to stream by like 10:30 if we need to stream. And then we can stream for a little bit and verdict watch. But that's my intention for tomorrow. Thank you for all of you being here. Thank you for making this channel the place to watch this trial. Thank you so many of you for being with me. We have so many cases to cover. We have so much to do. And tomorrow I will pull up all the documents for the ACLU to talk about, and we'll get into it because I have a feeling if they don't come back today, we might be earlier in the day tomorrow. So I need to look at my schedule. I will let you know tonight if I intend to just stream for a couple hours in the morning tomorrow. I will let you know. Normally I don't on Wednesday. The podcast comes out, but we might just have to do it. You guys, we're just getting around the horn on getting to 595. Thank you for being here, law nerds. Thank you for being a law nerd. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to go get some food. We'll see. We'll see what this jury does. I'll go put a poll up. I don't know if we're going to get a verdict. If we do, it's going to be later because there's going to be that extra hour. So I think we might see that. I mean, end of day would be wild, but maybe tomorrow. But we know they're working through the instructions because they asked that question. And with that, thank you for being here. You guys are the greatest. You're the greatest audience on the internet. You are the law nerds are the most amazing community. You keep me apprised of the things going on around the internet. You absolutely engage in such a kind and compassionate way with questions without being a dick. You guys are changing the way we have conversations on the internet. And that is the power of over, all day today, over 100,000 people coming together to have a conversation in a way that's not divisive, not name calling, not the uglier things that we see on the internet. And that's enough people to actually change it and be like, no, we don't ascribe to that fuckery. We're having real conversations. We're going to be sassy. We're going to have real conversations. And that is why this community is absolutely invaluable. Thank you for being here. I will see you. Well, we'll see how soon. I will see you soon. Replay crew. Thank you for hanging in this long. See you guys in the next one. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.